Chapter 435. Zhang Dongfang, the Heavenly Mist City's alchemy furnace supplier, had almost monopolized the alchemy furnace industry in the entire Heavenly Mist City. Those three dazzling golden alchemy furnaces were Zhang Dongfang's treasures. Not only were they very effective in refining elixirs, but they were also very powerful in battles. Zhang Dongfang had actually chosen to target Bu Fang, who was standing in the distance. Although Owner Bu's puppet was at the Divine Realm, Owner Bu himself wasn't at the Divine Realm. He wasn't even at the Supreme Being Realm. How could he resist Zhang Dongfang's killing move? Everyone sighed and closed their eyes. They couldn't bear to watch. The husband that goddess Nangong had just found was going to die. Nangong Wan's heart also trembled. The three alchemy furnaces' power was really terrifying. Her face changed, and she felt a little sad. Was Owner Bu going to die? If Owner Bu died, he wouldn't be able to eat such delicious dishes anymore. Nangong Wuk's eyes widened. Nangong Wuk widened his eyes and extended his hand. His face was filled with sadness and reluctance. Brother-in-law, don't die. He shook his head, and tears welled up in his eyes. The pitch-black turtle constellation Wuk floated in Bu Fang's hand. Looking at the three alchemy furnaces, Bu Fang's mouth curled up, and his mind flickered. The black turtle constellation Wuk shook, and in an instant, it shot out at an extremely fast speed. Facing the three alchemy furnaces of a divine physique echelon expert, Bu Fang didn't show the slightest bit of fear. Although Zhang Dongfang was seriously injured by Xiao Bai, he felt very carefree in his heart. After all, it was just a puppet. As long as he killed Bu Fang, he would lose control of the puppet. At that time, if he could find a way to control this divine realm puppet, this puppet could even be used by him. Thinking about this, Zhang Dongfang couldn't help but laugh. He was worthy of being the Heavenly Mist City's famous man. He was really sinister. The surrounding people sighed inwardly. This boss was dead meat. Which was harder, the alchemy furnaces or the black turtle constellation Wuk? Bu Fang wasn't sure himself, but Bu Fang was very confident, so he was very calm. Even though the pressure emitted by the three golden pill furnaces caused his hair to flutter in the wind, he did not panic in the slightest. His gaze was calm as he watched the black turtle constellation Wuk collide with the three golden pill furnaces. The black turtle constellation Wuk, also known as the black turtle constellation Wuk, was also known as the black turtle constellation Wuk. How could Bu Fang not have confidence in him? The power of the god of cooking set was not something these people could imagine. Bu Fang's current cultivation was too weak. As his cultivation increased, Bu Fang could feel how terrifying the god of cooking set was. Take the golden dragon bone kitchen knife, for example. This kitchen knife was the god of cooking set that had accompanied Bu Fang to dominate the Light Wind Empire. It was simply too easy to deal with spirit beasts. Moreover, as his cultivation base grew, the power of the dragon bone kitchen knife became stronger and stronger. Nangong Wuk didn't attack. He just stretched out his hand and looked at the sky. A black Wuk and three pill furnaces were smashing against each other. This black Wuk should be smashed into pieces, right? After all, Zhang Dongfang's pill furnaces were all of high quality. They weren't something a Wuk could compare to. As the black turtle constellation Wuk and the pill furnaces approached each other, Bu Fang's heart suddenly froze. He stared at the black Wuk in the sky, and a trace of disbelief appeared in his eyes. He could actually feel emotions from the black turtle constellation Wuk. This dong, the three pill furnaces and the black Wuk collided. The sound of metal colliding resounded. The sound was like a sound wave, and it unceasingly spread out, shaking the eardrums of the people. Many people covered their ears and looked at the collision in the sky in disbelief. This black Wuk actually blocked Zhang Dongfang's pill furnaces? Oh my god, this inconspicuous black Wuk is actually so awesome. Is there a quality problem with Zhang Dongfang's pill furnaces? If they can't even smash a black Wuk, how can they refine elixirs? Everyone's heart was shaken, and then they started discussing. Nangong Wuk excitedly waved his fist. Owner Bu, good job, a perfect black Wuk. Since Bu Fang's black Wuk had blocked Zhang Dongfang's pill furnaces, the next step would be easy. Nangong Wuk clenched his fist, and the aura on his body continued to rise. A dense white flame burned vigorously, and in an instant, it enveloped him. Waves of heat surged into the sky, and the surrounding people were extremely frightened. The might of the heaven and earth obsidian flame was unfathomable. "Don't worry, his pill furnaces can't return." Bufang looked at the black turtle constellation Wok and calmly said. When his words came out, the surrounding people were stunned, and some people even sneered. The black light and the golden light in the sky confronted each other, and no one could do anything to the other. Where did Bufang get the confidence to say that the black Wok could destroy the pill furnaces? However, before the sounds of laughter could dissipate, a huge change occurred in the sky. The golden light in the sky suddenly flourished, and it was as dazzling as a small sun. No one dared to look at it directly. At first, Zhang Dongfang was annoyed that his pill furnaces were blocked. However, he didn't expect that the situation would change. This dazzling golden light, could it be that the pill furnaces had displayed their might, and the black Wok couldn't withstand it anymore? It must be like that. Zhang Dongfang was so excited that he wanted to roar. However, before he could shout, White E's figure pressed his head against the ground and rubbed it against him. Zhang Dongfang coughed out blood again. However, the excitement in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Roar! A loud and clear beast roar suddenly resounded in the sky. Then, amidst the resplendent golden light, a faintly discernible gigantic silhouette appeared. That figure was majestic, and it carried a mountain peak that seemed to be made of gold on its back. Strange and rare beasts flew around the mountain peak. A terrifying pressure suddenly burst out. Everyone was in a trance for a moment. Bufang's mind was shaken. That was the black turtle? It turned out that the god of cooking Set really had a spirit. It hadn't appeared before. Could it be that it was provoked by the 3 pill furnaces? The god of cooking Set, the black turtle constellation Wok. The king of Wok. How could the king of Wok's prestige be provoked by 3 little pill furnaces? This phantom came and went quickly. The golden light emitted by the black turtle constellation Wok gradually retracted, and in the end, it once again became that simple and unadorned pitch-black color, quietly floating in the sky. Crack! 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 3 clear sounds rang out. The crowd, who had been stunned by the black turtle's roar, suddenly woke up from their daze. They looked around in bewilderment, not knowing what had just happened. Rumble, in the sky, the 3 golden pill furnaces shattered, covered in cracks. When the wind blew, they were like fine sand scattering from the sky. The 3 pill furnaces were destroyed in an instant. Only the black Wok was left floating quietly. At that moment, the crowd looked at the black Wok, feeling so domineering. Heavens! What just happened? That dazzling golden light. Wasn't it the power of the pill furnaces? How did the situation suddenly turn around? The black Wok smashed the 3 pill furnaces? Puff! Zhang Dongfang, who was shakily crawling up from the ground, the excitement in his eyes froze. Then, disbelief gradually appeared in his eyes. How is this possible? My pill furnaces. As soon as Zhang Dongfang finished shouting, Xiaobai grabbed his head and pressed it against the ground. Rip, blood dripped from Zhang Dongfang's head. Zhang Dongfang coughed out blood unceasingly. Finally, with a ripping sound, the clothes on his body were ripped apart. His entire body was thrown far away by Xiaobai. Dust rose from the ground. The other members of the Zhang family were frightened. The Zhang family's young master, Heavenly Mist City's influential figure, Zhang Dongfang, was stripped. Xiaobai's purple eyes swept around, filled with ice-cold intent. The Zhang family's young master shivered and retreated far away. The Zhang family's young master, whose clothes had been stripped by Xiaobai, scrambled to Zhang Dongfang's side and took out a set of clothes from his spatial spirit tool. Fortunately, ever since he was stripped, he had a habit of storing a few pieces of clothes in his spatial spirit tool. In the past, his spatial spirit tool only stored elixirs, weapons, crystals, and the like. Who would put clothes in it? At their level, no one had the time to take off your clothes. Only the crazy stripping demon of this store would have the hobby of stripping people's clothes. It was simply F asterisk King Dogsh asterisk T. The black turtle constellation wok flew back into Bufong's hands. Bufong grabbed the wok and smashed it on the ground with a heavy thud. His gaze swept across the entire scene. Nangong Wuk, whose entire body was engulfed in white flames, widened his eyes. He was stunned for a moment, and his expression was quite strange. As expected of my brother-in-law, "You're really powerful." Nangong Wuk smacked his lips and laughed. "Brother-in-law, will you die if you don't say anything?" Nangong Wan rubbed her forehead, speechless. Boom! Lin Wuying's figure slowly climbed up. His gaze was still cold. Looking at the miserable Zhang Dongfang, he finally felt a chill in his heart. This store was really not easy to deal with. No wonder he dared to provoke the Lin and Zhang families. Hey, the effects of your fire immunity pill should be about to wear off, right? Nangong Wuk looked at Lin Wuying with a smile. Lin Wuying was stunned, and in the next moment, his pupils shrank. Nangong Wuk, who was engulfed in flames, appeared in front of him with an explosive speed. The white flames burned fiercely, and the scorching temperature caused Lin Wuying to break out in cold sweat. Swoosh, swoosh. Numerous black shadows appeared beside Lin Wuying, and his figure actually weaved through these shadows, trying to avoid Nangong Wuk's attack. Nangong Wuk curled his lips. "It's useless. You're not one of those monsters from the young alchemist competition. How can you possibly dodge? If you can dodge, you're not Lin Wuying anymore." He smiled lightly. Nangong Wuk's body was immediately surrounded by a flaming tornado, and waves of flames rolled out, engulfing the shadows. Boom! With a muffled groan, Lin Wuying's body fell out of the flaming tornado. His skin had turned red from the heat. "Young Master Nangong, please show mercy." Just as Nangong Wuk threw a white fireball at Lin Wuying, a cold voice suddenly resounded in the sky. The pressure of heaven and earth suddenly increased. From afar, a shadow reached out and easily smacked away Nangong Wuk's white fireball. Today's matter: the Lin family admits defeat. In the future, the Lin family will definitely pay a visit to the Nangong family to apologize. The rumbling sound continued for a long time, and then it dissipated. Nangong Wuk curled his lips. He originally did not intend to kill, and the last fireball was just for show. It was to force out the Lin family's expert, a divine physique echelon expert who had broken through 2 of the Supreme Being's shackles. With the help of the Lin family, Lin Wuying coughed out blood and stood up. "TSK, TSK, TSK. In order to satisfy Lord White's hobby. Lin Wuying, hurry up and run." Nangong Wuk laughed and snapped his fingers. Then, Lin Wuying's body stiffened. The white flames burned faintly, and the tattered clothes on his body were burned away. A gust of cold wind blew past. Nangong Wuk, Lin Wuying, am not done with you." In the next instant, a miserable shriek, like that of a pig being slaughtered, resounded through the entire area. Chapter 436. Asterisk Chi. Asterisk A burst of dense pill chi gushed out from the opening of the pill pagoda's eaves. It was like a whale hiding in the sea spewing out a pillar of water into the sky. This pill chi lingered in spirals, causing the entire pill pagoda to be as mesmerizing as a dream. A wave of pressure suddenly swept down from the sky. Clouds rolled and floated above the pill tower. The pill tower's pill chi permeated the air, gushing out like gorgeous fireworks celebrating something. There were many tall buildings in Heavenly Mist City, and many people turned their heads to look at the pill tower in astonishment. Some forces smacked their lips in envy. Someone in the pill pagoda broke through the Supreme Being's shackles again and became a divine physique echelon expert. Another one-cloud apothecary has been born. I wonder which apothecary it is. Could it be Goddess Nangong Wan? That can't be right. Wasn't there a rumor that the goddess was eating in a restaurant a few days ago? TSK, TSK. But isn't the only person in our Heavenly Mist City who has the highest chance of becoming a one-cloud alchemist? Many people began to discuss as they curiously looked at the pill tower. As a landmark of heavenly mist city, many people held it in reverence. A one-cloud alchemist was able to refine a one-mark spirit pill. This was a hurdle for an alchemist. After all, a one-mark spirit pill could fetch a sky-high price in Heavenly Mist City. In the entire Heavenly Mist City, which had a population of several 100,000, there were only a few hundred one-cloud alchemists. The rarer something was, the greater its value. Because there were very few one-cloud alchemists who could refine one-mark spirit pills, the pills were naturally expensive. Creak! The ancient and unadorned bronze door opened. Surging spiritual aura and pill aura surged out from within the pill tower. The pill fragrance was dense, and the fragrance was overwhelming, causing quite a number of people to reveal an intoxicated expression. However, most of them widened their eyes as they stared at the figure that walked out of the bronze door. They were very curious as to who could become a one-cloud alchemist faster than Goddess Nangongwan. One must know that it was extremely difficult to become a one-cloud alchemist. Not only did one need to have sufficient cultivation, but one's mental energy must also reach a certain level. Only then would one have the chance to become a one-cloud alchemist. Everyone craned their necks to look at the figure that slowly walked out of the bronze gate. He was tall and sturdy, and his steps were like a dragon's. The one-cloud alchemist this time was actually a male. Which genius was it? Everyone was getting more and more curious. A gust of wind blew over, dispersing the smoke and dust, revealing a determined face. Yang Meiji squinted her eyes and let out a long breath as she felt the scorching sun shining on her. I've finally broken through. It's all thanks to teacher's three-striped dragon transforming pill that I was able to advance from 8th grade war god to half a step into the divine realm in such a short period of time. With my extraordinary mental energy, I've finally become a one-cloud alchemist. Yang Meiji was a little absent-minded. She had just stepped into the pill pagoda about half a month ago. At that time, she was nothing. Now that she had walked out, she looked like a brand new person. He had become a one-cloud apothecary earlier than Nangongwan. She could not help but reveal a smile on her face because of this joy. Her smile stunned the people around her. The person who had recently become a one-cloud apothecary was not a man, but a girl. A girl with a tall and sturdy figure. This was simply she's Yang Meiji. That genius student from the Alchemy Institute is Master Xian Bei's disciple. So it's her. That explains it. Hiss. It's simply terrifying. Wasn't she an 8th grade war god in half a month? How did she become a one-cloud apothecary? The news that the person who had recently become a one-cloud apothecary was Yang Meiji quickly spread like a raging wave, spreading throughout the entire Heavenly Mist City. Everyone was shocked by the scene before them. The restaurant owner, Yang Meiji, had become a one-cloud apothecary. The tall and sturdy Yang Meiji, who had astonishing talent in alchemy, had returned. Cloud Mist Restaurant. In front of the store, Nangongwan crossed his legs and leaned against the door. His legs were trembling like sieves. The frequency of his trembling was frightening. Nangongwan was holding a handful of elixirs in his hand. From time to time, he would toss an elixir into his mouth. With a crunching sound, he would crush the elixir and chew on it. In the elixir store outside the Cloud Mist Restaurant, many elixir store owners looked at him speechlessly. As elixir store owners, how could they not recognize the elixirs in Nangongwan's hands? That was a 5th grade medicinal pill, a medicinal pill that was worth several hundred essence crystals. Nangongwan was actually eating them as if they were jelly beans. How many crystals would he have wasted? As expected of the Nangong family's young master, he was indeed rich and overbearing. The Cloud Mist Restaurant was bustling with noise and excitement. The aroma of the dishes permeated the entire store. The people sitting in the restaurant had faces full of joy as they ate their dishes. After Nangongwan finished eating the Buddha jumps over the wall soup, she went back to open her store. She had no choice but to earn money. If she didn't earn money, she wouldn't even have enough money to eat the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Nangong Wuk still hadn't returned her the several 100,000 crystals. She knew that this shameless fellow would never return her money. Nangong Wuk also ate the Buddha jumps over the wall soup, so he leaned against the door lazily and ate his snacks. He was enjoying the fragrance of the store. In his opinion, this fragrance was much better than the fragrance of elixirs. As he ate Owner Boo's dishes, Nangong Wuk felt that he had become a little lazy recently. He didn't even have the passion to refine elixirs anymore. Sigh, a full stomach makes people fall. The sun was warm. Bu Fong walked out of the kitchen and wiped the water stains on his hands. He pulled a chair and lazily lay on it, basking in the sun. "Old Bu, do you want some? The taste isn't bad." Nangong Wuk glanced at Bu Fong and waved the 5th grade elixir in his hand. "No, I hate taking elixirs." Bu Fong narrowed his eyes and expressionlessly refused. Since there weren't any customers, he could rest for a while. "Are you stupid? This is an elixir, not a medicine," Nangong Wuk said seriously. Bu Fong's mouth twitched, but he didn't reply. Ever since the two influential figures of the Lin and Zhang families were stripped naked, the reputation of Yunlan's little store had been thoroughly established. Many people knew about this restaurant. As such, the restaurant's business was booming. The customers also got to know the restaurant's eccentric owner. Actually, Bu Fong was quite amiable. Other than his facial paralysis, he was quite easy to get along with. Didn't they see how well Owner Bu and that weirdo Nangong Wuk got along? When the customers finished eating and left the restaurant, they would smile and greet Bu Fong. Bu Fong would occasionally nod at them. The business of the restaurant seemed to be on the right track. Yang Meiji slowly walked in the direction of the Cloud Mist restaurant. She was somewhat nervous. She didn't know whether the restaurant had closed down or not. It should be very dangerous. After all, the Nangong family sold fasting pills in that area. How could a restaurant compete with elixir stores? Yang Meiji couldn't help but sigh. Her father passed the restaurant to her, but she couldn't make it flourish. She was so sad that she couldn't breathe. She clenched her teeth and decided to go back and take a look. She had already made up her mind. If the restaurant was really going to close down, she would redeem it from Bu Fong's hands. She would also return the crystals to Bu Fong. After all, she was the one who left the restaurant. There was no reason for Bu Fong to clean it up. However, she was extremely grateful to her teacher, Great Master Xianbei. She was in a dilemma. She walked to the elixir store area. The rich fragrance of elixirs filled the air. This familiar fragrance made Yang Meiji's heart feel even more uncomfortable. Sure enough, with so many elixir stores open for business, how could a restaurant survive? However, it was a little strange. The number of customers in these elixir stores was somewhat low. Yang Meiji walked for a while and looked around. She felt that something was strange. Elixir stores were very popular in Heavenly Mist City. It was especially true for the elixir stores owned by the Nangong family. They were sought after by many people. They shouldn't be so deserted. She walked to the front of an elixir store. The owner of the elixir store sat on a chair listlessly. He seemed to be extremely bored. "Owner, why is your business so bad?" Yang Meiji asked the sleepy owner in puzzlement. "Don't ask me. I don't want to talk. Go there and take a look. You will know," the owner said listlessly and pointed his mouth in a certain direction. Yang Meiji was taken aback. She looked in the direction where the owner pointed his mouth. Her pupils shrank. Wasn't that the direction of the Cloud Mist restaurant? What happened in the restaurant? Yang Meiji was startled. Did Nangong Ming bring people to cause trouble again? When she thought of this, Yang Meiji quickened her pace and quickly walked toward the Cloud Mist restaurant. As expected, Yang Meiji saw a group of people blocking the entrance of the restaurant from afar. From the clothes they were wearing, she could tell that they were members of the Nangong family. Nangong Ming had indeed come to cause trouble again. Yang Meiji was filled with grief and indignation. This time, she was a one-cloud alchemist. She had to intimidate Nangong Ming. Suddenly, Yang Meiji's eyes flashed. She saw a handsome figure in the crowd. She was dumbfounded. Just because I glanced at him in the crowd. Was that young Master Wuk? Woo Wuk. Why did young Master Wuk come to the Cloud Mist restaurant? Yang Meiji looked at that person in a daze. She couldn't even speak clearly, and her heart was beating rapidly. Her face instantly became red. She shyly followed the crowd and looked at Nangong Wuk, whose handsome red hair was fluttering in the wind. The corners of Nangong Wuk's mouth curled up. His hair fluttered in the wind as he slowly turned around. In Yang Meiji's eyes, Nangong Wuk's body seemed to be illuminated by the dazzling sunlight. Nangong Wuk seemed like a deity who had descended from the heavens. He was extraordinarily handsome and captivating. He had a gentle smile on his face. Oh! Yang Meiji felt as though her heart was about to melt. Stars appeared in her eyes. Chapter 437. Young Master, let's go back. The Cloud Sea Secret Realm is about to open. The family head should be returning soon. The Nangong family's great elder, Nangong Xuanhe, looked at Nangong Wuk, who was lazily leaning on a chair in the store. Bu Fong, who was lying on the chair, calmly looked at the group of people. His heart was slightly excited. Secret Realm? What is that? Nangong Wuk furrowed his brows and glanced at the great elder. He sighed and stood up. He said helplessly, "Since the great elder has said so, what else can I say? Let's go back and prepare to welcome our father." The smile on the great elder's face became wider. "Young Master, this way." The crowd parted to form a path. Nangong Wuk, who was wearing an alchemist robe, walked out slowly with his red hair fluttering in the wind. No matter how strange and amusing he was still the Nangong family's first successor. The crowd still had to respect him. Moreover, other than being amusing, Nangong Wuk didn't have any other flaws. He was talented in alchemy and handsome, which attracted the attention of many girls. While Nangong Wuk was walking leisurely, he suddenly felt a faintly discernible gaze fall on him. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. As a genius alchemist, Nangong Wuk's mental energy was very strong. He could feel that the faintly discernible gaze seemed to contain a bit of heat. Following the gaze, Nangong Wuk saw a tall and sturdy figure. That figure was wearing a brand new alchemist robe, which had a vivid and lifelike cloud embroidered on it. It was actually a one-cloud alchemist. Young Master is walking over. What should I do? I'm so excited. What should I do? Yang Meiji felt her heart beating faster and faster. Her face became flushed, and she blushed with embarrassment. She averted her gaze, not daring to look at Nangong Wuk. In the Alchemy Institute, Yang Meiji had seen Nangong Wuk's figure from afar. His superb alchemy skills and his handsome posture when he used the heaven and earth obsidian flame were deeply engraved in Yang Meiji's heart. Every time she saw him, her heart would palpitate. "You just broke through, right? You look unfamiliar." Nangong Wuk greeted Yang Meiji with a smile. "Is he talking to me?" Yang Meiji was very excited. Her gaze became even hotter. Nangong Wuk was startled by the fiery gaze. What the hell? Why did this burly man's gaze make his heart palpitate? This bro doesn't know how? As he thought of this, Nangong Wuk's complexion changed, and he quietly retreated a few steps. "Brother, I have high hopes for you. Good luck. Strive to become a two-cloud apothecary. Let's spar another day when we're free. I'll be making a move first." After Nangong Wuk finished speaking, he left while being escorted by the Nangong family's members. Oh, he's still surrounded by so many people, and he's still so handsome. He even wants to compare alchemy skills with me. I'm so happy. Yang Meiji clenched her small fists and looked at Nangong Wuk's departing figure with an intoxicated expression. Suddenly, her expression froze. "Wait, what did you just call me? Bro?" Yang Meiji's mouth twitched, and her face became expressionless. Only when she saw Nangong Wuk's figure disappear from her sight did Yang Meiji remember her goal. Her heart jumped. Why did young Master Wuk come? What did Bu Fong do to incur the wrath of the heavens? Could it be that the store had really closed down? Quickening her pace, Yang Meiji quickly arrived at the store's entrance. Indeed, she saw that Bu Fong had pulled a chair and was curling up in front of the store's entrance. His lazy appearance made it seem as if he had been abandoned by the whole world. How could he act like this? Even if the restaurant didn't have any business, he shouldn't give up like this. He should be passionate. Doing business should be passionate. Young Meiji aggressively walked toward Bufong, who was closing his eyes and resting. He seemed to feel that the sunlight was blocked. Bufong opened his eyes and saw Yang Meiji's tall and sturdy figure. "Long time no see," Bufong greeted her. "What are you doing? Although our Cloud Mist restaurant is in a difficult situation, we can't give up on ourselves. We should have dreams, pursuits, and passion. That's the only way to do business. I believe in your skills. You can become famous." Yang Meiji said to Bufong with a resentful look on her face. Bufong was a little bewildered. What was this woman talking about? Why couldn't he understand a single word? After Yang Meiji finished speaking, she felt much better. She always had high hopes for the store. After all, it was her father's restaurant. She didn't want it to fall into disrepair. However, after she finished speaking, she felt that the atmosphere was a little different. There seemed to be countless astonished gazes falling on her. Yang Meiji's eyes widened. She lifted her head and looked at the restaurant. She saw many gazes fall on her, which were full of astonishment and bewilderment. Apparently, it wasn't just Bufong who didn't understand her words. These people didn't understand her either. "Huh, you guys can continue. I was reciting the elixir recipe just now." "Huh, so awkward. Why were there so many people in the store? Why?" Yang Meiji smiled awkwardly. The shock in her heart almost drowned her. "Oh my God, there were so many customers. The Cloud Mist restaurant was revitalized. Unbelievable. How did Bufong do it? Surrounded by so many elixir stores, he actually opened up a new world. No wonder the owner of the elixir store pouted his lips in the direction of the store. It turned out that his business had been snatched." Hiss. Thinking of this, Yang Meiji looked at the young man who was curled up on the chair with even more astonishment. A restaurant could actually snatch the business of an elixir store? How? How is this possible? Was she dreaming? How could such an unimaginable thing happen? Wait. Also, why was this store completely different from before? She looked at the decorations and the tables and chairs. They were completely different from before she left. Those tables and chairs weren't the cheap ones she had bought. Bufong stood up and looked at the dumbstruck Yang Meiji. He stretched lazily and yawned. Conveniently, he rubbed Xiaopi's slippery carapace, which was lying on his shoulder. "After you left, I renovated the store a little and opened it according to my style. Yeah, the business isn't bad." Bufong said. Business wasn't bad? Owner Bu was really modest. Some of the customers were the owners of the elixir stores outside. When they heard Bufong's words, the corners of their mouths twitched. The business of their elixir stores was almost stolen by the restaurant. How could this business be considered not bad? Did he know that the amount of egg-fried rice he sold every day was enough to encircle Heavenly Mist City? The elixir store's owner was so angry that he could only vent his anger on the fragrant egg-fried rice. "You can walk around. Except for the kitchen, you are not allowed to go in. You can look everywhere else," Bufong said calmly. The kitchen was an important place, and ordinary people weren't allowed to enter. Even though Yang Meiji was the restaurant's owner, she wasn't allowed to enter. After all, Bufong was the restaurant's owner. Yang Meiji looked at Bufong's serious gaze and nodded. Then, she started to look around the restaurant. "Owner Bu, give me a serving of egg-fried rice." A customer stepped into the store and said to Bufong with a smile. Nowadays, the customers were very respectful to the restaurant. After all, the restaurant's owner was the Nangong goddess's husband. The restaurant and the Nangong family had a close relationship. That was why they came to support the restaurant. Moreover, the taste of the dishes in the restaurant was really wonderful. It was so wonderful that they were almost intoxicated by it. Every time they came to the restaurant for a meal, they would leave with a happy mood. Actually, this wasn't bad. Nangong family Inn, a vast courtyard, the harmonious stream of flowing goblets, pavilions, terraces, and other buildings made the courtyard look like a fairyland. Nangong Wuk was leisurely walking in the courtyard. The great elder was beside him with a gentle expression. After walking for a long time, the two of them stepped into a teleportation array in the courtyard. The teleportation array flickered with light. Their figures distorted in the teleportation array and disappeared from their original place. When they reappeared, they were in a metal building in the Heavenly Mist City. It was several tens of floors high, and it reached the clouds. This building was really tall. Nangong Wuk walked out of the teleportation array and arrived in front of the window. He looked down at the entire heavenly mist city and took a deep breath. This was the Nangong family's property. It was the family's headquarters. Nangong Wuk and the others were on the top floor of the building. There was a teleportation array, which was as big as a public square. This was the teleportation array that led to the Cloud Sea secret realm. Many of the Nangong family's higher-ups were standing around the teleportation array. Some of them were the family's elders, and some were the people in charge of the family's businesses. Some of them were powerful, and some of them were extremely powerful. All of them were famous existences in the heavenly mist city. Young master, the 100,000 crystals required for the teleportation array have been set up. The teleportation array will be activated soon. Please take charge of it. The great elder looked at Nangong Wuk with a gentle smile. The surrounding elders all agreed with him, and they all had smiles on their faces. Their smiles were somewhat terrifying. Nangong Wuk furrowed his brows and swept his gaze over this group of people. He felt that something was strange. However, he didn't think too much about it. After all, once the teleportation array was activated, his father would return, and these people wouldn't dare to make any big moves. Hence, he nodded and raised his hand. A cluster of pale, white flames appeared. The surrounding people looked at the 9 King flame in Nangong Wuk's hand with greed. That was a heaven and earth obsidian flame. He flicked his finger, and the pale white flame shot out and jumped into the teleportation array center. The entire teleportation array was filled with crystal's energy, and this energy seemed to have been ignited as it started to boil. A bright light shone. It illuminated the surrounding people's creepy smiles. In the Nangong family's courtyard, Nangong Wan was wearing a long dress, and her voluptuous figure was vividly displayed. Her fair and well-proportioned legs were as beautiful and mesmerizing as a white jade. Suddenly, her brows furrowed, and she couldn't help but cover her towering breasts. Her heart thumped intensely, and her whole body couldn't help but shiver. It seemed as though something bad was about to happen. Chapter 438. Nangong wanted to know why, but she felt somewhat dazed. She couldn't help but furrow her brows. The surroundings of the Nangong family's courtyard were quiet and peaceful. The harmonious stream of flowing goblets, the pavilions, and the floating mist made the surroundings seem like a fairyland. However, this fairyland-like environment gave Nangong Wan a bone-chilling feeling. The mist became denser and denser. It was like a tide that came from all directions and enveloped Nangong Wan. What was going on? How could something like this happen? Nangong Wan felt as if all the pores on her body were about to explode. Her true energy surged, and her half-step divine cultivation made her aura extremely powerful. However, she was unable to disperse the mist. An enemy attack? Impossible. This was the Nangong family's courtyard. There were many experts protecting it, and it was impossible for an enemy attack to happen. What was going on? Nangong Wan was somewhat anxious, and a faint cyan flame gushed out of her, making her look cold and elegant all of a sudden. Who is it? Come out. If you dare to invade my Nangong family, then don't hide. Nangong Wan coldly shouted, but as the mist in the surroundings became even denser, Nangong Wan's voice reverberated in the air. The surroundings were extremely quiet, and the sound of the harmonious stream of flowing goblets was very clear. However, it was so clear that it made people's hearts tremble. Hee, ha ha. Faint laughter drifted out from the mist, and it came from all directions. Nangong Wan couldn't figure out what was going on. Rumble. Her alchemic flame surged, and it seemed as if it had turned into a phoenix that soared into the sky. It exploded in all directions. Bang! It seemed as if a storm had swept through the area, and flames soared into the sky. However, Nangong Wan's heart quickly sank. Her attack didn't manage to disperse the mist in the slightest. Amidst the hazy fog, a figure seemed to slowly emerge. It became clearer and clearer. In the end, the mist dissipated, and the figure appeared in front of Nangong Wan. When Nangong Wan saw the person's face clearly, her beautiful pupils shrank, and she sucked in a breath of cold air. Second Elder, why is it you? Didn't you follow my father to the Cloud Sea secret realm? Why are you here? The second Elder, Nangong Xianying, was a powerful existence who had broken through two of the Supreme Being's shackles. Back then, he had clearly followed his father to the Cloud Sea mystic realm. Shouldn't he be returning with his father today? Why would the second Elder appear here? This was illogical. Chaos. Everything seemed to be a little chaotic. The second Elder looked at Nangong Wan with a faint smile, but a complicated look flashed in his eyes. Lil Wan, come with Grandpa Xianying. Grandpa will bring you to a good place. I won't let you get hurt, Nangong Xianying said gently. He looked at Nangong Wan dotingly. Nangong Wan's gaze was as sharp as lightning, and she shook her head. Something was not right. Something was not right. There was something strange about this. Why did the second Elder take her away? Nangong Wan wasn't a fool. How could she not know that the so-called going to a good place meant that she would be imprisoned? Although the second Elder's words were filled with affection, Nangong Wan felt a chill run down her spine. Come, follow Grandpa Black Eagle. Nangong Xianying, with his hands clasped behind his back, extended his hand and gently waved at Nangong Wan. No! Nangong Wan glared at him, and a cyan alchemic flame engulfed her body. The ground beneath her feet exploded, and it gave rise to a whistling gale. Nangong Wan took a deep breath, turned around, and dashed out of the courtyard. She wanted to escape. She couldn't allow herself to be captured without putting up a fight. The smile on Nangong Xianying's face gradually disappeared. Why are you so disobedient? You really have the same temperament as your father. It's a pity that this temperament won't bring you a good end, Nangong Xianying said coldly. As he spoke, his tone became more and more sinister. He looked at Nangong Wan, who was about to rush out of the courtyard. Nangong Xianying raised his palm. Rustle. Two faintly discernible pitch-black chains appeared on his back. The world's pressure suddenly became more intense. Nangong Wan's body, which was about to rush out, stiffened. Her eyes widened, and her body was powerlessly pressed against the ground. The world's pressure emitted by an existence who had broken through two of the Supreme Being's shackles wasn't something that Nangong Wan, who was only half a step into the divine realm, could resist. The disparity between their strengths was too great. Under this pressure, she couldn't even struggle. A trace of unwillingness appeared in her eyes. However, she was even more confused. The eerie white flame flickered. It lit up the teleportation array's vital energy. The vital energy seemed to be boiling as it surged up. Boundless fluctuations lingered around the teleportation array and reverberated throughout the entire building. Nangong Wuk controlled the nine-hell king flame with a calm gaze. The great elder, Nangong Xuanhe, stood in the distance and looked at the handsome Nangong Wuk. The corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a sinister smile. The teleportation array flickered with light, and an intense fluctuation spread out. A beam of light soared into the sky and shot into the heavens. The clouds above the heavenly mist city suddenly changed. The originally bright sky was suddenly covered by rolling black clouds. All the heavenly mist city's families and experts were stirred up. Did the Nangong family activate the teleportation array again? The Nangong family's members were about to return from the secret realm. The competition for the slots to enter the secret realm would soon begin. The heavenly mist city would soon be bustling with noise and excitement. Nangong Wuk looked at the teleportation array and sensed the radiance surging out of it. It seemed as though several figures were emerging from the teleportation array. Surging fluctuations spread out. However, Nangong Wuk quickly sensed that something was amiss. He furrowed his brows. Even though he was a clown, he wasn't stupid. Eerie laughter rang out from the surroundings. It sounded like the howls of ghosts and the cries of birds. It lingered in the air, sometimes near and sometimes far away. The eerie white flame illuminated the faces of the Nangong family's upper echelons. Nangong Wuk instinctively became vigilant when he saw their eerie laughter. Something was wrong. Swoosh! Suddenly, a majestic pressure descended upon him. Nangong Wuk felt as though he was carrying a mountain on his shoulders. What was going on? Which expert with 2 severed shackles attacked him? Nangong Wuk coldly raised his head. The wind whistled and fluttered his red hair. Nangong Xuanhe smiled as he looked at Nangong Wuk. However, Nangong Wuk couldn't feel the slightest hint of smile on his face. His aura erupted and true energy surged out from his body. A terrifying pressure surged out from his body and pressed down on Nangong Wuk. "Great Elder, what are you doing?" Nangong Wuk asked coldly. "Wuk, let me tell you a piece of bad news. Your father, Nangong Wantian, died in the Cloud Sea Secret Realm." Nangong Xuanhe sighed and said sorrowfully. Nangong Wuk's pupils shrank to the size of a mung bean. "What? Father died? How is this possible?" His father was a divine physique echelon expert with 3 severed supreme being shackles. How could he die? Nangong Wuk didn't believe it. He turned his head and looked at the teleportation array. The flames gradually dissipated and converged into his body. The teleportation array was overflowing with energy. One by one, the faces of the Taoists became clearer and clearer. No, no, how could there be no one? Nangong Wuk felt as though he was struck by lightning. He couldn't find his father's figure. Crack! A figure slowly walked out of the teleportation array. He sneered as he looked at Nangong Wuk, who was in a daze. "Big brother, are they going to make a move?" "Third brother, this is all thanks to the information you sent back." "Second brother went to capture that girl, right?" Nangong Xuanhe looked at the figure that walked out of the teleportation array. "Of course, with second brother taking action, that girl won't be able to escape." The third elder, Nangong Xuanhu, laughed heartily. "Nangong Wangtian died. The Nangong family will belong to us 3 brothers. As long as we control this kid and that girl, no one can defeat us." The third elder laughed heartily. Nangong Wuk coldly looked at the 2 of them. The higher-ups of the Nangong family in the surroundings also changed sides. The Nangong family was no longer the Nangong family of the past. Moreover, if you dare to touch a single hair on Nangong Wan's head, I, Nangong Wuk, will definitely kill you. Nangong Wuk stood up slowly. The great elder calmly looked at him. "One is so beautiful. Why will we hurt her?" The successor of the Mu family in Heavenly Pill City, Mu Chanfeng, will come to our Nangong family in a few days to propose marriage. One is going to marry him grandly. "Mu Chanfeng?" Nangong Wuk's eyes instantly turned red as he roared. "You dare? Mu Chanfeng, that disgusting beast, is not worthy of my sister. Nangong Xuanhe, if you dare to do this, I will definitely kill you." Nangong Wuk's roar reverberated through the entire floor. The people in the surroundings sneered coldly. Nangong Xuanhe calmly looked at him and said, "Don't be anxious. I have been eyeing the 9 Hell King flame in your body for a long time. I will slowly extract it from your body." In the next moment, Nangong Xuanhe's figure disappeared from his original position. Sonic booms resounded unceasingly. Nangong Wuk's pupils shrank. White flames erupted from his body and engulfed him. However, an unrivaled stream of true qi directly smashed into his face and sent him flying ruthlessly. A loud bang resounded. Nangong Xuanhe turned his palm into a claw and grabbed Nangong Wuk's neck, pressing him to the ground. A strange fluctuation spread out, and Nangong Wuk felt that his energy was fading away. His veins popped out as he glared at Nangong Xuanhe. His gaze was incomparably cold. Cloud Mist Restaurant Bufong finished his last service. He stretched his body and chased the last customer out of the restaurant. Then, he closed the bronze gate without any hesitation. Yang Meiji walked down from the 2nd floor with an odd expression on her face. She looked at Bufong in disbelief. The changes in the Cloud Mist restaurant were too great. It was so great that she couldn't adapt to it. However, she couldn't deny that Bufong had revitalized the Cloud Mist restaurant. This was a fact. This was what made Yang Meiji admire him. Yang Meiji opened her mouth and wanted to say something. Suddenly, Her mind flickered, and she took out a jade talisman from her bosom. She didn't hide from Bu Fong and directly activated the jade talisman. A person's figure appeared on the jade talisman. It was an old man with a head full of white hair. His gaze was deep and unfathomable. That person didn't even look at Bu Fong. He just stared at Yang Meiji and said calmly, "Lass, return to the Pill Tower immediately. The Heavenly Mist City is going to change." Chapter 439. Change the weather? What change? Yang Meiji was stunned. She looked at the figure on the jade talisman in confusion. This person was none other than the Pill Tower's Three Clouds alchemist, Master Xianbei. At this moment, Master Xianbei was clearly somewhat vexed. He didn't say much to Yang Meiji. He merely said coldly, "Don't ask so many questions. Just come back quickly. The Cloud Sea secret realm is about to open. Make some preparations. This time, I will bring you along." After Master Xianbei finished speaking, his figure became hazy and he disappeared from the jade talisman. Yang Meiji was a little helpless. She looked at Bu Fong apologetically. "I originally wanted to come to the store to help out, but now it seems like I won't have the chance. This is my teacher, someone I respect." Yang Meiji introduced with a smile. Bu Fong nodded his head. That old man was very strong. Although they were separated by a talisman, Bu Fong could still feel the terrifying aura from that old man. It could be said that this old man was the scariest person he had ever met. "My teacher is an existence that has broken through 3 supreme being shackles. Moreover, he is also a 3 Clouds alchemist. His position in Heavenly Mist City is very high," Yang Meiji said cheerfully. She then looked at Bu Fong apologetically. "Then I will return to the Pill Pagoda first." "All right, since my teacher said that Heavenly Mist City is going to change, something big might really happen. You should be careful." Bu Fong nodded his head and yawned lazily. Then, he turned around and stepped into the kitchen to practice his culinary skills. Yang Meiji smiled, then turned around and left the Cloud Mist restaurant. He walked towards the Pill Pagoda. She was really anxious. She still remembered what Nangong Wuk had said to her. "Wait until you break through to become a 2 Clouds alchemist, then we can compare notes on alchemy techniques." "Ah, I'm so shy." Thinking of this, Yang Meiji couldn't help but blush as she covered her face with her fists and ran away. Along the way, many people felt their hair stand on end when they saw her like this. Is this guy retarded? Heavenly Mist City's teleportation array. The flashes of light became more and more frequent. One after another, unfamiliar figures walked out from the teleportation array. Their auras were extremely terrifying, as if they wanted to shatter the void. The eyes of these people were so cold that it seemed as if there were lightning flashing in them. Pill Palace's Heavenly Mist City? This place is quite lucky. It's actually a teleportation point for a mystic realm. The leader was a man with a terrifying aura. He was wearing a blue and white robe that was extremely luxurious. The man had a tuft of white bangs on his forehead, forming a sharp contrast with his pitch-black hair. "Since my Wind and Thunder Pavilion has arrived, I, Xiao Changyun, must obtain the quota for the secret realm this time." The man's lips curled into a cold smile. The Wind and Thunder Pavilion was a first-rate force in the Hidden Dragon Continent. It was comparable to the Pill Palace and the Grand Baron sect. After this group of people left the teleportation array, they walked into the city with great fanfare. After a short while, the teleportation array flickered once again. Then, waves of sinister aura burst out from the teleportation array. This aura made people feel extremely disgusted and uncomfortable. These people were all wearing black robes. Their robes were as black as ink, and each of them seemed to be wrapped in darkness. Their faces were indistinct and indistinct. However, these people were carrying huge, ice-cold bronze chests on their backs. These chests were engraved with many mysterious array lines, and they emitted peculiar fluctuations. Who? These people didn't speak, but a red radiance burst out from their black robes. This was their gaze. The sinister aura reverberated around the teleportation array, and it made people feel extremely stifled. The puppet sex experts had finally arrived. This group of people were all wrapped in black robes. As they walked out, the aura they emitted caused the surroundings to turn pitch black. The scarlet eyes of the puppet sex experts gazed into the distance. When they saw the towering buildings of the heavenly mist city, they let out hoarse laughter. That laughter was like grinding sand, causing all the pores on one's body to open up, causing one's hair to stand on end. After the puppet sex experts left, the teleportation array shone once again, and several figures appeared in it. These people were all extremely tall and sturdy, and they emitted powerful auras. The Grand Baron sex experts also arrived. The Grand Baron sex expert was a man who carried a huge stone sword on his back. The stone sword didn't have a sharp edge, but made people feel as though an unsheathed sword intent was about to engulf everything. The experts of the Lin and Zhang families were already standing at the entrance of the heavenly mist city. When they saw the powerful figures approaching, the complexions of the experts from the two great families slightly changed. These were all experts from the continent's first-rate factions. Although they weren't the top experts of their factions, their statuses weren't ordinary. The Lin family warmly received the experts from the Wind and Thunder Pavilion. The Wind and Thunder Pavilion was famous in the continent, so the Lin family was naturally very attentive. Moreover, this time, the Wind and Thunder Pavilion's genius disciple, Xiao Chongyun, had broken through two supreme being shackles at such a young age. The Zhang family received the experts from the puppet sect. This gloomy and frightening sect gave the Zhang family a feeling of fear and trepidation. The experts of the puppet sect loved to use and create puppets. It was rumored that the experts of the puppet sect could refine the corpses of other experts into powerful puppets. In order to refine powerful puppets, the puppet sex experts dug out the graves of many experts on the continent, dug out the corpses from deep underground, and refined them into corpse puppets. They were extremely vicious. The Grand Baron sex experts didn't have a good relationship with the Pill Palace, but some of the great families in the heavenly mist city still warmly received them. These experts came from the continent's first-rate factions, and they were scattered throughout the heavenly mist city. The atmosphere in the heavenly mist city instantly became tense and oppressive. The two pill cities, Heavenly Pill City and Heavenly Shine City, also sent their experts over. After all, this was related to a secret realm. It was impossible for them not to send people over. There were many good things in the secret realm, such as supreme spirit herbs, crystal mines, and even natural treasures. There was even a heaven and earth obsidian flame. Anything could exist in the arcane realm. Thus, no one wouldn't be tempted by secret realm. The teleportation array flickered once again. This time, the light was different from before. This time, it was cold and sinister, and there was a tinge of blood in it. Two figures appeared from the teleportation array. These two figures were clad in blood-red robes, and a dense smell of blood permeated the air around them. Misha, are you sure that the Shura Tower's aura appeared in this secret realm? The figure in the blood-red robe on the left asked. The person who was questioned smiled faintly. My senses aren't wrong. The Shura Tower was stolen by that traitor, Duan Ling, and its aura was concealed. Not long ago, it burst forth once, but after that, I didn't discover it again. A few days ago, when I was in the ancient Shura city, the Shura Tower's aura became extremely intense. Everything pointed to the Shura Tower being in this secret realm. Misha raised his head, and his jet-black hair swayed slightly. The Nangong family's dungeon. In the dark and damp dungeon, a figure was helplessly bound to a metal cross. Within the cross, there were many ice-cold chains piercing through this person's body, and fresh blood flowed out unceasingly. Nangong Wuk's head drooped down powerlessly, and his dark red hair stuck to his skin. It was incomparably cold. He was gasping for breath, and his eyes were half opened. He could feel the aura within his body becoming extremely weak, and a large amount of true energy was running amok in his meridians, causing him to feel as though his entire body was being pricked by countless needles. His body was bound by the cross, and his shoulder blades were pierced through, causing him to be unable to use any of his strength. This was especially true since the heaven and earth obsidian flame in his dantian, the nine Hell King flame, had been completely extracted by Nangong Xuanhe. His cultivation was almost completely crippled. The current Nangong Wuk was no longer as dazzling as before. All of a sudden, a creaking sound could be heard, and the dungeon's door was opened. Nangong Wuk felt that the light was dazzling, and he let out a groan. Several figures walked out of the door. When Nangong Wan saw Nangong Wuk's appearance, she felt as though she was struck by lightning. Her heart was dripping blood. Was this still her unruly and funny older brother? How could they treat him like this? At this moment, Nangong Wan was so furious that she almost lost her reason. However, Nangong Xianying, who was standing beside her, wasn't someone she could deal with. Nangong Wan felt extremely dejected, and she could only look at Nangong Wuk with her red eyes. Nangong Wuk seemed to have sensed Nangong Wan's gaze, and he raised his head. When he saw Nangong Wan's beautiful face, he heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. Then, a strained smile appeared on his blood-stained pale face. It was as though he was trying to tell Nangong Wan that he was still the same foolish brother. However, no one knew what was going on in his heart. Second Elder, can you let me speak with my brother alone? Nangong Wan restrained the grief in her heart and asked Nangong Xianying coldly. Nangong Xianying furrowed his brows and was about to reject her. Hee, you're already like this, so what are you still afraid of? Nangong Wan looked at him disdainfully and said, Indeed, the entire Nangong family belonged to the three of them, so what was there to be afraid of? The corners of Nangong Xianying's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. He just turned around and left the dungeon. He walked out of the dungeon and let out a sigh. He clasped his hands behind his back, and he seemed somewhat desolate. After a long while, the dungeon's door opened once again, and Nangong Wan slowly walked out. Let's go, Nangong Wan said expressionlessly. Nangong Xianying gave her a profound look before he left the dungeon. The guards entered the dungeon, and when they saw Nangong Wuk, who was still chained to the cross, they all heaved a sigh of relief. Then they went back to what they were doing. Nangong Wuk slightly raised his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled upwards. This lassie, her alchemy techniques have improved by quite a bit. Crunch, he crushed an elixir in his mouth, and the array within the elixir immediately enlarged. A terrifying tearing force instantly turned Nangong Wuk's body into a bloody mess. By hiding the teleportation array within the elixir, the teleportation array's energy was extremely berserk. This was an extremely dangerous move, and Nangong Wan had no choice but to use this method. No one knew whether or not Nangong Wuk would be torn to shreds by the berserk energy during the teleportation. Nangong Wuk, who was within the teleportation array, coughed out blood and laughed heartily. His gaze was filled with madness. With a swoosh, the radiance disappeared. Nangong Wuk and the ice-cold metal cross disappeared at the same time. The guards in the dungeon were dumbstruck, and in the next moment, an uproar broke out. Nangong Wuk escaped. Cloud Mist Restaurant. After Bu Fong finished practicing his culinary skills, he stretched his body and walked out of the kitchen. All of a sudden, an intense fluctuation transmitted from a store. Bu Fong was startled, and he raised his head to take a look. He saw a teleportation array appear. A bloody figure fell from the teleportation array, and with a thump, it fell onto the ground. Bu Fong was dumbstruck. What the hell? The figure moved, and a weak voice echoed. Old Bu, I'm really happy to see you alive. Chapter 440. He didn't expect that Nangong Wan would actually place the teleportation array in Owner Bu's store. Nangong Wuk's body was covered in blood, and his flesh was a mess. His high-spirited appearance had long disappeared, and he was in a sorry state. He gasped for breath, and his chest heaved up and down like a bellows. From time to time, he would cough out a few mouthfuls of blood. Bu Fong's brows twitched. What happened? Why did Nangong Wuk become so miserable? Old Bu, do you have anything to eat? I'm starving. Nangong Wuk trembled as he tried to crawl up from the ground. However, he suddenly lost all his strength and fell back onto the ground. His face slightly darkened. Nangong Wuk smiled and didn't bother to crawl anymore. He raised his head and said to Bufang, "This was too miserable." His true energy was completely chaotic, and there were countless hidden injuries in his body. The metal cross was binding him, and the chain had pierced through his body, sealing his cultivation. "Who did you offend? Why are you so ruthless?" Bufang said. He walked over and helped Nangong Wuk up from the ground. He stirred his true energy and tugged at the ice-cold chain, but he discovered that he couldn't move it at all. Bufang twitched his brows. He was slightly surprised that the chain was actually quite strong. "Don't waste your strength. This chain is made of millennium dark steel, and it is specially used to seal the cultivation of divine physique echelon experts. It is incomparably strong. You haven't even reached the divine physique echelon, so how can you break this chain?" Nangong Wuk smiled helplessly. Bufang stopped what he was doing and glanced at him. Green smoke curled around his hand, and suddenly, the dragon bone kitchen knife appeared in his hand. There was nothing that the dragon bone kitchen knife couldn't cut. However, just as he was about to cut the chain, the golden Xiaopi, who was lying on his shoulder, waved its sickle claws and cut the chain as easily as cutting tofu. Bufang was stunned, and so was Nangong Wuk. Xiaopi snorted and waved its two sickle claws, showing off to Bufang. Nangong Wuk's eyes immediately lit up. This little toy was actually so awesome. It could even cut through a mysterious iron chain. It was simply an essential tool for picking locks when traveling. Xiaopi returned to Bufang's shoulder and lay there quietly. Bufang touched the latter's carapace, and Xiaopi closed its compound eyes comfortably. After the chain was broken, Bufang helped Nangong Wuk pull out of his body inch by inch. The pain caused Nangong Wuk to suck in a breath of cold air. "Ouch, it hurts." The metal cross was finally removed from Nangong Wuk's body. Nangong Wuk felt his whole body relax. He closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the ground. He took out a bottle of elixirs from his spatial spirit tool and poured them into his mouth as though they were free. Kachi-kachi. Dense spiritual energy emitted from the elixirs. "Old Boo, make me a bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall soup," Nangong Wuk mumbled. "Today's Buddha jumps over the wall soup has been sold out," Bufang calmly said. "Don't. Your Buddha jumps over the wall soup can definitely help me recover quickly. Look at how pitiful I am." Nangong Wuk's blood-stained face revealed a trace of grievance. Bufang glanced at him and remained unmoved. "I already said that today's Buddha jumps over the wall soup has been sold out. You don't need to ask anymore." After saying that, Bufang turned around and walked toward the kitchen. "I will make you a dish that can help you recover quickly. However, you will still have to pay with crystals." Shortly after, Bufang's voice drifted out from the kitchen. Nangong Wuk immediately grinned. In order to eat Bufang's dishes, Nangong Wuk didn't bring anything else, but he did bring a lot of crystals. Hence, he immediately agreed to it. Nangong Wuk's escape caused an uproar in the dungeon. The guard didn't understand how Nangong Wuk escaped, so he could only report it to the Great Elder. After rushing out of the dungeon, the guard informed the Great Elder, Nangong Xuanhe. Nangong Wuk escaped? Nangong Xinying slightly raised his brows when he heard the guard's report. That lassie really had some tricks up her sleeves. As he thought of this, Nangong Xinying's expression became even colder. "Big brother, I will go and capture that kid," Nangong Xinying said. This time, Nangong Wuk's escape was mainly due to him. Nangong Xuanhe looked at him and nodded his head. "Fine. If you really can't capture him, then just kill him," Nangong Xuanhe said. Nangong Xinying nodded his head and turned around, walking toward the exit. When he reached the exit, Nangong Xinying squinted his eyes and raised his head. He saw two people who were wrapped in blood-red robes. Who were they? Nangong Xinying's heart shuddered. He felt an extremely terrifying aura coming from those two people. That aura made him feel slightly uncomfortable. Those two people, as if they sensed Nangong Xinying's gaze. One of the people wrapped in blood-red robes raised his head and his ice-cold gaze collided with Nangong Xianying's. Nangong Xianying's heart skipped a beat, and the blood in his body started to boil uncontrollably. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Nangong Xianying took a deep breath and nodded his head at that person. He then turned around and left the Nangong family. Nangong Xuanhe walked out of the house with a warm smile on his face and welcomed those two people. Search the entire city. Remember, don't miss a single corner. You must find Nangong Wuk. Nangong Xianying coldly instructed his subordinates. Then, his subordinates rushed into the heavenly mist city and started searching for Nangong Wuk. Nangong Xianying, who had a gloomy expression on his face, slowly walked on the main street of the heavenly mist city. In the Lin family's building, the higher-ups of the Lin family and the experts of the Wind and Thunder Pavilion stood together and looked at the group of people from the Nangong family. They couldn't help but laugh. Young Master Xiao, the Nangong family is in chaos now. The Nangong family will definitely be defeated in the Secret Realm selection in 3 days. The head of the Lin family, Lin Kai, said with a smile. Xiao Chanyun calmly looked at the heavenly mist city beneath him and gently nodded his head. That's only natural. If the Nangong family doesn't have anyone to help us, then the quota for the heavenly mist city will be greatly reduced. In the future, your Lin family will be able to gain the upper hand. That's right. Everyone is happy. Young Master Xiao can enter the secret realm to find what he wants, and my Lin clan can suppress the Nangong clan. It's a win-win situation. Lin Kai laughed out loud. Xiao Changyin picked up a glass of wine, took a sip, and nodded gently. The same thing was happening in the Zhang family's building. However, compared to the gentle Xiao Changyun, the experts of the puppet sect were much colder and more difficult to get along with. However, their goals were the same, and they were rather harmonious. Clap, clap. The golden dragon bone kitchen knife spun rapidly in Bu Fong's hand. He twirled the knife in his hand and patted the huge supreme mantis prawn on the chopping board. After that, Bu Fong sliced the prawn meat on the chopping board. The transparent prawn meat was as thin as a cicada's wings. Each and every line on the prawn meat was very distinct, and they were like beautiful flowers that dazzled the eyes of those who looked at them. The sliced prawn meat was placed on a plate, and it looked like a splendid flower. Bu Fong placed the prawn meat into a steamer basket and started to steam it. Bu Fong covered the top of the steamer basket with his hand and sensed the flow of spirit energy within it. On the other side, he started to mix the sauce. He took out the abyssal chili sauce and poured half a spoonful into a blue and white porcelain bowl. After that, he poured a cup of ice-hard jade urn wine into it and stirred it evenly. A faint fragrance wafted out. Bu Fong opened his mouth and spouted a small ball of golden flames. The 10,000 bestial flame danced on his palm. Bu Fong swallowed the ball of flames and jumped into the blue and white porcelain bowl. In an instant, the flames blazed brightly, and with a rumbling sound, waves of heat rolled out. A dense, spicy smell accompanied by a thick fragrance permeated the air. After adding other seasonings, he cut a small piece of blood crown and put it into the sauce. That piece of blood crown instantly turned into spirit energy and permeated the sauce. A bowl of Bu Fong's secret chili sauce was completed. The taste of this sauce was a little sour and a little spicy. Goo-goo-goo. Thick steam rose from the steamer basket, and it was accompanied by surging spirit energy. This was the meat of a supreme beast, and the spirit energy contained within it was extremely dense. Moreover, the supreme mantis prawn meat had a pretty good effect in replenishing spirit energy. Most of the spirit energy within the prawn meat was retained. After being steamed by Bu Fong, it became even more sparkling and translucent. It was too beautiful to behold. The plate of prawn meat bloomed like a flower, and a bowl of sour and spicy sauce was placed on top of it. Bu Fong's special dish was completed when Nangong Wuk, who was sitting cross-legged and recovering, walked out of the kitchen while carrying the fresh prawn meat. His nose couldn't help but twitch. He opened his eyes and looked at the prawn meat in Bu Fong's hand. His eyes instantly lit up. After a short period of recovery, the chaotic, true energy within his body had been smoothed out. However, This didn't mean that his injuries had recovered. This could only prevent his injuries from worsening. What kind of dish is this? It isn't on the menu. Nangong Wuk was extremely curious. There are many dishes that aren't on the menu, Bu Fong calmly replied. He pulled a chair and sat opposite Nangong Wuk. Nangong Wuk impatiently picked up a piece of sparkling and translucent prawn meat and dipped in the sauce, causing the prawn meat to become slightly rosy. Steam spread out from the rosy prawn meat, and it was extremely pleasing to the eye. Nangong Wuk stuffed the prawn meat into his mouth. Oh, Nangong Wuk's eyes widened. He took a deep breath and chewed the prawn meat in his mouth. The prawn meat was bouncy and had a good texture. The most important part was the sauce. It was extremely sour and spicy, and its spiciness caused all the pores on his body to open up. His blood and energy surged. After eating a piece of prawn meat, he actually started to sweat. The surging energy flowed into his stomach through the prawn meat and was absorbed by him. It was so refreshing. Nangong Wuk felt his strength continuously recovering. The energy that this bowl of dish provided him was exactly what he needed. Although he used the meat of a supreme beast, which wasn't as nutritious, Nangong Wuk was still satisfied. Of course, if he could get his hands on Old Qian's 8 Treasures chicken and let Owner Bu cook it with his special method, the taste would definitely be delicious. When Bu Fong saw Nangong Wuk eating happily, the corners of his mouth curled upwards. When a customer was eating happily, as a chef, he was naturally happy as well. All of a sudden, when Nangong Wuk was eating happily, suddenly, a series of knocking sounds came from the store's bronze door. Knock, knock, knock. Open the door. Quickly open the door. The Nangong family is searching for a criminal. Chapter 441. Quickly open the door. The Nangong family wants to arrest a criminal. The violent banging on the door made the restaurant's door rumble. Bu Fong furrowed his brows in displeasure and turned his head to look at Nangong Wuk. Nangong Wuk didn't mind. He picked up a piece of piping hot prawn meat, dipped it in the chili sauce, and stuffed it into his mouth. That's right. The criminal they want to arrest is me. While chewing the prawn meat, Nangong Wuk mumbled. The Nangong family wanted to arrest the Nangong family's young master? Bu Fong furrowed his brows. When he thought about how Nangong Wuk was covered in blood, he couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth. Nangong Wuk picked up another piece of prawn meat. He seemed to have sensed Bu Fong's playful gaze and sighed. While eating the prawn meat, he told Bu Fong everything that had happened. Bu Fong leaned against the chair and listened to Nangong Wuk calmly. His brows furrowed even more. He didn't expect that the Nangong family's betrayal would cause this. Nangong Wuk's miserable appearance made Bu Fong's heart tremble. As expected, the people who were familiar with him were the most ruthless. Eat slowly. Don't worry about them. Bu Fong didn't open the door. He was too lazy to do so. He just calmly told Nangong Wuk to continue eating the prawn meat. This prawn meat could help him recover his energy and strength at a faster rate. The people outside also noticed that something was amiss. Why didn't the restaurant's door open? At first, it could be because the owner was sleeping, but their movements were so loud and their voices were so loud that the door was almost broken by them. How could the boss not wake up yet? It was obvious that something was amiss. Was the owner feeling guilty? Guilty? Why was he feeling guilty? Could it be that Nangong Wuk was really inside? That's right. It was definitely the case. When the Nangong family's people thought of this, they became excited. The sound of them knocking on the door became more intense. When Nangong Wuk dipped the last piece of prawn meat into the sauce and put it in his mouth, he chewed it. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. After Nangong Wuk ate this dish, the external injuries on his body were almost healed, and the true energy cyclone within his body was also surging. Although the heaven and earth obsidian flame had been extracted, he was still severely injured. However, at the very least, Nangong Wuk had survived this tribulation. Are you done? Bu Fong asked. Nangong Wuk leaned against the chair and nodded. Then, Bu Fong stood up and walked toward the door. The knocking sounds outside the door grew louder and louder. If you don't open the door, we're going to break the door. The Nangong family members outside the door began to roar and threaten. It was obvious that Nangong Wuk was most likely staying in the store. Boom! There seemed to be a surge of Jinshi outside the door. In the next moment, a rapid impact sound resounded. Creak! The bronze gate was slowly opened by Bufong. Outside the door, the two Supreme Being experts raised their true chi and prepared to charge into the store. The sudden opening of the store made the two Supreme Beings somewhat embarrassed. However, the Nangong family's members quickly entered the store. They had been suspicious of the store for a long time. Why did you open the door so late? A Supreme Being glared at Bufong, his eyes filled with coldness. Bufong shot him a glance and expressionlessly turned around and walked into the store. That Supreme Being was instantly enraged. This guy actually dared to ignore him. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. He saw a figure leaning against a chair and looking at him with a playful smile. Nangong Wuk. At this moment, everyone was stupefied. The leader of the Supreme Beings even let out a cry of alarm. He had finally found him. He was indeed in the store. After letting out a cry of alarm, the Supreme Being was overjoyed. Looking at Nangong Wuk's badly mutilated appearance, the Supreme Being felt as though he had just gotten lucky. As long as he could capture this guy, he would be able to obtain the Nangong family's reward. That reward might even allow him to break through to the divine physique echelon. As for whether or not he could capture Nangong Wuk, this wasn't within the scope of his concern. Nangong Wuk had already been stripped of his heaven and earth obsidian flame. He was no longer the high and mighty Nangong Wuk from before. His badly mutilated body and his cultivation had also collapsed. How could he be a match for him? This Supreme Being was extremely confident. As for the store's owner, he was merely an 8th grade war god. This kind of ant could be easily crushed to death. There was no need to fear him. The store's owner couldn't be a hindrance to him. The surrounding Nangong family members also had the same reaction. They looked at Nangong Wuk with greedy eyes. A purple radiance flickered. Xiao Bai's body slowly walked out of the kitchen and landed beside Bufong. Hey, Lord Bai, you don't have to do anything. I will deal with these people. Nangong Wuk glanced at Xiao Bai and said with a smile. Then, he stood up and stretched his body. His bones emitted cracking sounds. The sound was unceasing. Nangong Wuk ran his fingers through his red hair. His gaze toward the Nangong family members gradually became ice-cold. Nangong Wuk remembered many of their faces. Many of the people who had tortured him were among them. It was time to settle the score. Attack together. Capture Nangong Wuk for me. Don't let him escape. The leading Supreme Being shouted. Everyone's aura rose sharply as they stared at Nangong Wuk crazily. The tip of Nangong Wuk's foot lightly touched the ground. His figure instantly dashed out at high speed. A sonic boom resounded, bringing along a gale. Nangong Wuk appeared in front of the two Supreme Beings. He raised his ice-cold eyes and collided with the gazes of the two Supreme Beings. His eyes, which were filled with killing intent, caused the hearts of the two Supreme Beings to turn cold. Nangong Wuk raised his hand and grabbed the collars of the two Supreme Beings. His speed didn't decrease as he continued dashing out of the store. Boom! 2 explosions resounded. The two Supreme Beings were ruthlessly thrown out by Nangong Wuk. They crashed into 2 elixir stores. You guys can't be forgiven, Nangong Wuk said coldly. The aura emitted from his body became even colder. The others also dashed out of the store and looked at Nangong Wuk in fear. The two Supreme Beings struggled to get up from the ground. They coughed up blood, but they laughed crazily. Ha ha! You are no longer the Nangong Wuk of the past. You are so weak. Crazed roars resounded. One of the Supreme Beings, who was brimming with true energy, unleashed a fist technique. He charged at Nangong Wuk with killing intent. This was the fist technique of the Nangong family. It was extremely powerful. Nangong Wuk sneered. That's right. Without the heaven and earth obsidian flame, the 9 Hell King flame, his strength had decreased greatly. Moreover, because he was seriously injured, his battle prowess had decreased greatly. However, he was still a divine physique echelon expert. With the nourishment of Owner Boo's prawn meat, he had recovered a lot of his cultivation. Dealing with 2 Supreme Beings was still very easy. Bang! His aura surged out, and it seemed as if there was an invisible ice-cold chain floating behind him. Nangong Wuk moved once again. He surpassed the speed of sound, and a sonic boom resounded in everyone's ears. With a bang, an explosion resounded. The face of the Supreme Being who unleashed the fist technique became distorted. He was ruthlessly smashed into the ground by Nangong Wuk. His true energy turned into a cannonball and exploded. That Supreme Being let out a miserable howl, and his whole body exploded. Nangong Wuk stamped his foot on the ground, and his body soared into the sky. He charged at the other Supreme Being. His true energy turned into a blade that was as thin as a cicada's wing, and it instantly sliced through the air. A head soared into the sky, and a pillar of blood soared into the sky. The silly Nangong Wuk, when he became indifferent, was filled with killing intent. After killing the two Supreme Beings, Nangong Wuk's gaze fell on the other disciples. These people, all of them had betrayed the Nangong family. All of them deserved to die. Nangong Wuk's hair fluttered in the wind, and his face, which was covered by blood, seemed even more terrifying. Bang! The true energy beneath his feet exploded, and his body shot out like a gust of wind. The disciples of the Nangong family were instantly terrified. Wasn't it said that Nangong Wuk was seriously injured, and that he didn't even have 1/10 of his strength? That was a lie. How could he be seriously injured? Poochie! Poochie! Outside the store, the yellow sand was dyed with blood. The blood on the ground was like a puddle, and it slowly flowed out. Nangong Wuk was like a wolf that had entered a flock of sheep, and his killing intent pervaded the air. All of a sudden, an explosive roar came from afar, and a wave of heaven and earth's pressure approached at an extremely fast speed. A figure appeared, and it seemed as though it was tearing the sky apart. This figure had an imposing appearance, and a powerful aura surged from his body. Behind him, there was a chain that shook unceasingly. Nangong Wuk killed the last disciple, and his face was covered with blood. Only then did he raise his head and look at the figure. Nangong Chung, you also want to kill me? Nangong Wuk's voice unexpectedly became somewhat hoarse. You are now a criminal of the Nangong family. If I, Nangong Chung, don't kill you, who should I kill? The man smiled slightly, and he looked at Nangong Wuk with a playful gaze. His eyes were filled with excitement. Nangong Wuk, the heaven's proud son, Nangong Wuk. Even you would have such a day. Nangong Wuk threw away the corpse in his hand, stood up, and took a deep breath. Pitter-patter. It was unknown when dark clouds covered the sky, and the pitter-patter of rain fell from the sky. In just a short while, the rain became heavier. Nangong Chung stood proudly in the sky, and he used a light barrier to block the rain from falling on him. He looked extremely carefree. Nangong Wuk didn't bother to block it, and he allowed the ice-cold rain to fall on his body. When the ice-cold rain hit his skin, he felt a chill run through his body. The bloodstains were washed away by the rain, and Nangong Wuk's handsome face was once again revealed. His clothes were somewhat tattered, and a lot of his skin was exposed. The scars on his skin had yet to heal, and they looked sinister and terrifying. These scars, Nangong Wuk didn't expect that they were actually caused by the Nangong family. This rain washed away the bloodstains, and it also washed away the last bit of attachment Nangong Wuk had for the Nangong family. A murderous aura gradually condensed, and it gathered in his eyes. It shot toward Nangong Chung, who was in the sky. Tisk, TSK, TSK. Such a gaze that makes one's hair stand on end. Nangong Wuk, Elder Xianying already knows your position, and he is on his way here. Aren't you going to obediently let yourself be captured? Nangong Chung said with a smile. Bu Fong and Xiao Bai walked to the entrance, and they raised their brows slightly as they looked at the surroundings, which were suffused with a bloody aura that soared into the sky. When Nangong Wuk went crazy, he was really quite terrifying. Nangong Xianying, there will be a day when I will slaughter these 3 old fellows. However, before that, I will first slaughter you. Nangong Wuk looked at Nangong Chung, who was in the sky, and grinned. Chapter 442. The pitter-patter of rain fell from the sky and landed on the ground, shattering the ice-cold raindrops. Nangong Xianying clasped his hands behind his back and wore an ice-cold expression as he slowly walked on the main street of the heavenly mist city. The rain was beating on his body, but it was unable to approach him. Every time he took a step, his figure would explosively shoot a great distance away. Suddenly, he stopped and took out a jade talisman. As he read the information contained within it, the corners of his mouth curled up. "I finally found you, Nangong Wuk. Let's see where you can run to." Due to his carelessness, Nangong Wuk had managed to escape. This caused him to fly into a rage out of humiliation. He had thought that everything was under his control. However, this brat was still able to find a flaw in his plan and escape. This made him lose face in front of his big brother. Thus, he wished that he could immediately find Nangong Wuk and bring him back to the dungeon. This time, he definitely wouldn't have any chance to escape. The tip of his foot lightly tapped the ground. All of a sudden, the raindrops in the surroundings were blown away by a gale, and Nangong Xianying's body flew out like a real eagle, shooting toward the location of the Cloud Mist restaurant. Nangong Chung was an extremely talented member of the Nangong family's younger generation. Not only was his cultivation extremely high, but his talent in alchemy was also second only to Nangong Wuk. He had always been jealous of Nangong Wuk because he was the heavenly mist city's proud son of heaven. When people mentioned the Nangong family, they would only mention Nangong Wuk and not Nangong Chung. It was because Nangong Wuk had always been suppressing him that he was unable to display his abilities. Now his time had come. Nangong Wuk had fallen, and he, Nangong Chung, would quickly become famous in the heavenly mist city. Moreover, if he could kill Nangong Wuk with his own hands, he would be able to push his name to the top of the waves and become famous overnight. Thus, Nangong Chung was tempted. Nangong Wuk's killing intent was extremely cold, but Nangong Chung only sneered at him. The current Nangong Wuk wasn't a match for him. Nangong Wuk didn't have a heaven and earth obsidian flame, or even an alchemy fire. So how could he be a match for him? Hualala, an ice-cold chain coiled behind him like a huge dragon, emitting a tremendous might. This was the might of heaven and earth, an ability mastered by a divine physique echelon expert that could crush a supreme being. Rumble. A bolt of lightning suddenly shot out from the sky. The light flickered, almost tearing the entire sky apart. Nangong Cheng's usually gentle face became twisted and hideous after the appearance of the lightning. Nangong Wuk, go to hell. A long roar rose to the sky. Tens of thousands of raindrops suddenly engulfed the area. They seemed to have turned into sharp steel needles as they shot toward Nangong Wuk. Nangong Wuk straightened his body, and his pressure slowly spread out. The needle-like raindrops stopped and floated in the air. Zhang Xian waved his hand casually. Instantly, thousands of raindrops exploded, like countless blooming epiphyllum. They were only beautiful for a moment before they withered. Whoosh! Nangong Wuk's figure instantly became blurry, and a sonic boom resounded. Divine physique echelon experts who had broken through one shackle could reach the speed of sound, and they could easily create sonic booms. Their punches were even faster, and their fighting prowess became stronger because their physiques had become stronger. Nangong Wuk stepped in the air and suddenly appeared in front of Nangong Chung. "You want to step on me to rise?" "I, Nangong Wuk, am not someone who can be stepped on so easily." Nangong Wuk smiled coldly. He punched out. His speed was shockingly fast. Bang! Nangong Chung stretched out his hand to block the attack. "You are so weak now." Nangong Chung smiled faintly. Spiritual energy burst out of his body, and a scarlet flame soared into the sky. This was alchemic fire. Although it was much weaker than a heaven and earth obsidian flame, its might was still extraordinary. With the addition of the alchemic fire, Nangong Cheng's fighting prowess suddenly erupted. Nangong Wuk was directly smashed into the ground, and a loud bang resounded. The scarlet alchemic fire spread out, evaporating the raindrops falling from the sky. Its might was incomparably strong. Sizzle, steam rose up, and a layer of mist covered the surroundings. The scarlet flame soared into the sky, and it turned into a palm that covered the sky. The palm fiercely slapped down, and the air around it emitted a crackling sound. Bang! The might of this palm was extremely terrifying, and it seemed as if it wanted to slap Nangong Wuk to death. Bu Fong, who was watching from afar, squinted his eyes as he looked at Nangong Wuk, who was fleeing in all directions. Although he had eaten the prawn meat and recovered a lot of his spirit energy and strength, it was still impossible for him to recover to his peak state. After all, his heaven and earth obsidian flame had been extracted, and he had sustained serious injuries. It was already not bad for him to recover to his current state. Of course, if he could eat a portion of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup, the effects would be even better. Bang! Bang! Nangong Chung, who was floating in the air, laughed excitedly. His hair fluttered in the wind. He waved his palm unceasingly, and he controlled the flaming palm formed by the alchemic fire. He slapped the ground unceasingly, and the ground was continuously shattered. As he looked at Nangong Wuk's fleeing figure, he felt his whole body's blood flow rapidly. He was extremely excited. Die! Die for me! Nangong Chung looked at Nangong Wuk, who used to be aloof, fleeing in a sorry state from his attacks. Nangong Chung felt so refreshed that he couldn't even describe it with words. The myriad of flames seemed to have turned into a flaming dragon, and it forced Nangong Wuk into a corner. It was about to burn Nangong Wuk to death. Nangong Cheng's eyes widened in excitement, and his expression became somewhat malevolent as he laughed unceasingly. Your laughter is really King disgusting. Nangong Wuk, who was forced into a corner, stood up and let out a breath. A jade bottle suddenly appeared in his hand. He crushed the jade bottle, and an elixir, which emitted a faint green radiance, flew out of it. There was a faintly discernible pattern flickering on the surface of the elixir. It was Nangong Wuk's secret one-mark spirit elixir. Crack! Nangong Wuk bit the elixir into pieces and swallowed it. Nangong Wuk's surroundings immediately emitted a green radiance, and his aura started to rise. His skin also became sparkling and translucent, as if it was made of fine jade. Nangong Wuk's gaze became profound, and he raised his hand. The red flaming dragon immediately stopped in the air. Nangong Cheng's complexion stiffened, and his smile froze on his face. What was going on? Why did Nangong Wuk suddenly erupt with such a powerful aura? In the next moment, Nangong Chung discovered that his flaming dragon was torn apart by tyrannical power. The handsome and confident Nangong Wuk, whose whole body seemed to be emitting a dazzling radiance, suddenly appeared in front of him. His alchemy flame was extinguished. Nangong Wuk raised his white palm and ruthlessly slapped it on Nangong Cheng's face. An explosive sound echoed. Nangong Cheng was directly smashed down from the air. Nangong Wuk, who had swallowed the elixir, became much more indifferent. His speed became faster, and his fighting prowess became stronger. His aura also became more powerful. Nangong Cheng had an illusion that he was facing Nangong Wuk in his peak state. At that time, Nangong Wuk wasn't someone Nangong Cheng could compare with. Nangong Cheng's heart was filled with fear. Nangong Cheng couldn't display his full strength, and he became Nangong Wuk's punching bag. Countless fists pounded on his body, and he was beaten to the point that he didn't want to live anymore. He continuously coughed out blood. His originally gentle figure became even more wretched. Bang! His last fist pounded on Nangong Cheng's dantian. The shockwave suddenly spread out in a huge circle. Nangong Cheng's eyes became listless, and he weakly fell on the ground. His aura was dispirited, and his mouth was foaming with blood. The elixir's effects disappeared. Nangong Wuk felt as if his whole body was being pricked by needles, and his originally sparkling skin was now covered with fine beads of blood. His whole body was covered with blood once again. However, the rain that fell from the sky washed away the blood on his body. It only made him look somewhat miserable. Nangong Wuk grabbed Nangong Cheng's collar and lifted him up. Nangong Wuk looked at Nangong Cheng, who was foaming with blood, and laughed crazily. "You're still acting tough? Why don't you continue acting tough?" Nangong Wuk slapped Nangong Cheng's head again, and the latter didn't even have the strength to resist. "Didn't you want to step on me to climb up the ladder? Come on." "Poochie." Nangong Cheng was extremely furious, and he spouted a mouthful of blood. Nangong Wuk punched him in the face, and the latter weakly fell on the ground. Nangong Wuk covered his palm with true energy and pressed it against Nangong Cheng's dantian. A scarlet flame immediately rushed out of his dantian and entered Nangong Wuk's body. Although Nangong Wuk's heaven and earth obsidian flame was extracted, his body still had the aura of the Nine Hell King flame. Suppressing the alchemic flame was too easy, and it wasn't difficult for him to swallow it. You can't do this. You can't." Nangong Cheng crazily struggled. However, he could only look on helplessly as his alchemic flame was extracted. His heart felt empty, and he felt as if his body had been emptied. "Nangong Wuk, you dare?" A roar came from afar, and its speed was extremely fast. Even the raindrops were shattered by this roar. Nangong Xining finally arrived. Two pitch-black shackles fluttered in the sky, and they emitted a dreadful and stifling aura. Nangong Wuk sneered coldly as he looked at Nangong Xining, who had just arrived. He grabbed Nangong Cheng from the ground. Nangong Cheng was like a dead dog, and he didn't want to live anymore. "Stop!" Nangong Xining's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Nangong Cheng was his junior. How could he let him die like this? "Stop? Do you think I will stop just because you told me to? Who do you think you are, Nangong Xining?" Nangong Wuk coughed out a mouthful of blood, and his complexion became paler. The elixir's side effects made him feel extremely uncomfortable. He exerted his strength in his palm and directly crushed Nangong Cheng's head. Bufang calmly watched from afar. Nangong Xining was extremely infuriated. His angry roar, which was accompanied by a dreadful pressure, swept over. He wanted to smash Nangong Wuk into meat paste with a single strike. This move contained Nangong Xining's boundless fury. Nangong Wuk's whole body became limp and powerless, and he knelt down on one knee. Raindrops slid down his cheeks, and they were ice cold. Buzz of purple radiance flickered. Xiao Bai's body suddenly appeared in front of Nangong Wuk. The metal wings on his back spread open, and a sonorous sound echoed. Rumble. The vein patterns on his armor flickered, and Xiao Bai raised his fan-like fist and smashed it against Nangong Xining's fist. Nangong Xining roared. Green smoke curled up from Bu Fang's hand, and the black turtle constellation Wok floated in his hand. The melted water of the extreme ice domain and the noodles scattered everywhere were all poured into the wok. Bu Fang opened his mouth and spouted a scorching golden flame. The heaven and earth obsidian flames might immediately erupted. Nangong Wuk sensed something, and he turned his head around and looked at Bu Fang in disbelief. A heaven and earth obsidian flame? Owner Bu also had a heaven and earth obsidian flame. Chapter 443. The golden flames were so dazzling and enchanting. The light emitted by the flame was like a small sun, attracting Nangong Wuk's attention. He couldn't believe it. This is the heaven and earth obsidian flame. Is it really a heaven and earth obsidian flame? The might of the golden heaven and earth obsidian flame was not any weaker than his Nine Hell King flame. The fluctuation of the heaven and earth obsidian flame shocked him. He had never imagined that Bu Fang would actually have a heaven and earth obsidian flame. Owner Bu, who was not even in the divine physique echelon, actually had a heaven and earth obsidian flame that even divine physique echelon experts would find difficult to control. This was simply like a fantasy story. If he wasn't at the divine body realm, how could he possibly have the ability to absorb the heaven and earth obsidian fire? Moreover, Owner Bu was not an alchemist. That made it even more difficult. Were the heaven and earth obsidian flames so worthless now? Even an 8th grade war god could obtain it. Wait, what is Old Boo trying to do? After Nangong Wuk recovered from his shock, he suddenly saw Bu Fong's actions. When he saw the flame enter the bottom of the black wok, his face couldn't help but become excited. Could it be that Old Boo is planning to cook with a heaven and earth obsidian flame? Nangong Wuk was struck by lightning, and his weak face flushed red. What a waste! How could they be so wasteful? How could a heaven and earth obsidian flame be used for cooking? This kind of flame should be used for alchemy. Yes, that's right. It should be used to refine pills. Using a heaven and earth obsidian flame to cook was like using a dragon saber to cut a carrot. How extravagant was that? This Old Boo, simply committing a sin. He had known Bu Fong for a long time, but he hadn't realized that Bu Fong had a heaven and earth obsidian flame. Who? He drew a deep breath. Nangong Xianying also sensed the heaven and earth obsidian flame's aura, and he couldn't help but turn his head to look at it in astonishment. Heaven and earth obsidian flame? How could an 8th grade Ant have a heaven and earth obsidian flame? Nangong Xianying's reaction wasn't much different from Nangong Wuk's. They were both so shocked that they almost started doubting their own lives. One must know that his big brother, Nangong Xuana, didn't hesitate to betray the Nangong family in order to obtain the 9 Hell King flame in Nangong Wuk's body. He forcefully extracted the heaven and earth obsidian flame from Nangong Wuk's body and killed a genius alchemist. Without the heaven and earth obsidian flame, Nangong Wuk's talent in alchemy would be greatly reduced. The pride of Heavenly Mist City would soon become a thing of the past. And all of this was because of that heaven and earth obsidian flame. But what did he see now? An unfamiliar 8th grade war god, an ant-like fellow, actually took out something like the heaven and earth obsidian flame. This feeling was simply unacceptable to him. What he found most difficult to accept was this fellow actually used the heaven and earth obsidian flame to cook. Cooking. Are you King showing off? Boom! The enraged Nangong Xianying punched Xiaobai and sent him flying. The metal wings on White Yi's back trembled violently, and clanging sounds could be heard as they collided with each other. Swoosh! Swoosh! Numerous flying knives shot out of Xiaobai's body. Their speed was extremely fast, and they seemed as if they wanted to tear through the air and soar into the sky. Many whistling sounds resounded as the flying knives flew toward Nangong Xianying like they were on fire. Their speed was really too fast. Moreover, there were so many of them that they blotted out the sky and the sun. After leveling up, the speed of Xiaobai's flying knives had become even faster. Nangong Xianying was, after all, an expert who had broken through 2 of the Supreme Being's shackles. His true energy burst forth, and 2 chains danced in the air behind him. They emitted clanging sounds as they emitted a radiance. Heaven and earth's pressure swept through the surroundings, causing the crushed stones on the ground to shatter. Nangong Xianying retracted his gaze from Bu Fong and raised his palm, which was emitting a powerful energy. His true energy revolved and bounced off all of the flying knives. The flying knives that were bounced off stopped in midair and flew back to Xiaobai's back. This cycle continued without end. This puppet is somewhat interesting. Nangong Xianying's pupils contracted. Xiaobai's fighting prowess exceeded his expectations. It was a divine echelon realm puppet. However, how could a divine echelon realm puppet appear here? Wasn't this kind of puppet something that could only be controlled by the puppet sect? The puppet sect's experts were currently in Heavenly Mist City. Could it be that this kid in front of him was related to the puppet sect? Nangong Xianying narrowed his eyes, and he suddenly felt a little apprehensive. If Bu Fong was really a member of the puppet sect, he would have to reconsider whether he should kill him or not. After all, the puppet sect was really terrifying. However, before that, he still had to kill Nangong Wuk to prevent any future troubles. Although his alchemy talent had been destroyed, his cultivation talent was still monstrous. If he wasn't so lazy, he would have broken through 2 of the Supreme Being's shackles long ago. However, his laziness gave Nangong Xianying an opportunity to deal with him. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. After the ramen went through the boiling hot soup, a faint fragrance spread out. It wasn't very strong, but it clearly reached everyone's nostrils. Bufong scooped out a big ladle of abyssal chili sauce and poured it into the hot soup. In an instant, the boiling hot soup turned red. A spicy aroma spread out and surged out violently. Bufong's movements were extremely skillful. He casually patted the black turtle constellation wok, and the ramen soared into the sky and fell into the porcelain bowl he had prepared. Bufong poured the boiling red soup into the bowl, and the spicy aroma spread out. A bowl of rampage ramen was completed. At this moment, Nangong Wuk was grieving. He didn't expect that Bufong would really use a heaven and earth obsidian flame to cook. His heart was in pain. When he thought about the heaven and earth obsidian flame that was forcefully taken from him, his heart ached even more. It was really infuriating. Why'd he take out a heaven and earth obsidian flame when his heart was in pain? Bufong did it on purpose. Take the noodles. After Bufong finished cooking the rampage ramen, he glanced at Nangong Wuk, who was grieving, and curled up the corners of his mouth. He casually waved his hand, and the rampage ramen flew toward Nangong Wuk. What was this thing? A bowl of noodles? What was the use of giving him noodles at this moment? Nangong Wuk was taken aback, and he subconsciously caught the bowl of rampage ramen that Bufong threw at him. Wait, this is a ramen cooked with a heaven and earth obsidian flame. Did Bufong want to comfort my wounded heart and let me experience the taste of a heaven and earth obsidian flame once again? Nangong Wuk's hands trembled as he held the bowl of rampage ramen. His eyes were brimming with tears. Bufong was really too meticulous, and he was so touched that he wanted to cry. Nangong Xianying looked at the steaming bowl of ramen and sneered in disdain. Eating ramen? Did he think that this bowl of ramen was some kind of elixir? It was simply ridiculous, and he didn't know what he was talking about. Bang! Nangong Wuk snorted angrily as he punched the last flying knife. Swoosh! The flying knife flew toward Xiao Bai's wings, and a purple luster appeared in Xiao Bai's eyes. Buzz, a peculiar fluctuation spread out. Then, the armor on Xiao Bai's body blossomed with a dazzling radiance. The array on the armor was activated. A white circular array floated in front of Xiao Bai's belly. Bang! A loud explosion resounded. An energy cannon shot out from the array in front of Xiao Bai's belly. It was extremely fast, and it gave rise to a rumbling sound. Nangong Xianying was taken aback once again. He took a deep breath. This puppet was really incredible. A cannon array? They actually engraved a cannon array on a puppet? Who was the one who designed this puppet? A true energy barrier appeared, and the cannon array smashed against it. Nangong Xianying was unexpectedly forced to retreat several steps. He was, after all, a divine physique echelon expert who had broken through 2 of the Supreme Being's shackles. His cultivation was extremely powerful, and he was able to forcefully resist it. Smoke and dust filled the air as Nangong Xianying dispersed his barrier and exhaled a mouthful of white air. However, his pupils suddenly shrank again. Nangong Xianying felt a terrifying fluctuation coming from the white mist in front of him. Bang! 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 Continuous explosions resounded as the cannon array tore through the white mist and shot toward Nangong Xianying. Nangong Xianying's whole body's hair stood on end. Even though he was a divine physique echelon expert who had broken through 2 of the Supreme Being's shackles, he didn't dare to use his fleshly body to resist the cannon array. Thus, he once again created a true energy barrier. The energy cannons bombarded the true energy barrier unceasingly, forcing Nangong Xianying's body to retreat. Nangong Wuk was stupefied. His mouth was right in front of the blue and white porcelain bowl, but he didn't know how to eat it. He looked at Xiao Bai, who was like a human-shaped destroyer, in a daze. Cannon array. The cannon array, which was used to attack cities, was being casually bombarded by Nangong Wuk. It turned out that Lord Bai was actually so ferocious. Nangong Wuk swallowed a mouthful of saliva and accidentally coughed out a mouthful of blood. After gasping for breath, Nangong Wuk poured the ramen into his mouth. Old Bu didn't even give him a pair of chopsticks when he asked him to eat ramen. Nangong Wuk gulped down a mouthful of steaming soup and stuffed his mouth full of ramen. He chewed the ramen unceasingly. Suddenly, his eyes widened, and his eyes became bloodshot. His pale face instantly turned red, and it seemed as if it was about to burst into flames. What the F***CK is this? Why was it so spicy? Nangong Wuk's face was streaked with tears as he chewed while crying. Bu Fong dispersed the 10,000 bestial flames and put away the black turtle constellation wok. He expressionlessly looked at Nangong Wuk. I saw that you were heavily injured, so I added some ingredients to make it more effective, Bu Fong said. Bang, bang, bang. In the next moment, a surge of true energy surged out of Nangong Wuk's body, and he felt as if he was about to be set ablaze. Oh, it's spicy. Nangong Wuk jumped up from the ground and tore apart the clothes on his body, which were already tattered, as he roared. His true energy surged up violently. Nangong Wuk, who felt as if he was about to be set ablaze, gulped down the remaining ramen with tears streaming down his face. He roared loudly. His bloodshot eyes glared at Nangong Xianying, who was in the distance. Damn it, Lord Bai, get out of the way. Let me deal with this old dog. Chapter 444. Lord Bai, get out of the way. Let me deal with this old dog. Nangong Wuk straightened his neck and roared with bloodshot eyes. His aura was like that of a dragon as it roared in the heavens. Nangong Xianying was almost angered to death. Who the hell did you call an old dog? He, Nangong Xianying, had a noble status, yet this brat dared to call him that. It was simply unforgivable. Xiao Bai's purple eyes flickered, and the array in front of his belly emitted green smoke. It stopped revolving and no longer shot out cannons. Nangong Xianying was drenched in cold sweat. He didn't expect that he, a dignified divine physique echelon expert with 2 severed shackles, would be forced into such a sorry state by a mere puppet. Nangong Xianying's aura became even more oppressive as he coldly looked at Xiao Bai. Nangong Wuk howled as he descended from the sky and landed in front of Nangong Xianying. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. When the ice-cold rainwater fell on Nangong Wuk's skin, it immediately evaporated, and steam rose from his body. Nangong Wuk felt as if his skin was on fire, and this scorching sensation made him feel extremely uncomfortable. However, the true energy in his dantian was surging, and the alchemic flame he had just absorbed was also surging and roaring unceasingly in his dantian. His strength unexpectedly underwent a great change at this moment. How did his strength undergo such a great change? What was the reason behind it? Nangong Wuk's body was burning with heat, and the spiciness in his mouth caused him to howl. However, his mind was still filled with shock. Could it be because of that bowl of ramen? He recalled the bowl of ramen that Bu Fong had thrown at him. That bowl of ramen was so spicy that he had no friends, and it gave him a headache. Seeing that you were heavily injured, I decided to add some spice. Is this adding spice? This is a poison. Nangong Wuk roared, and his naked upper body became scarlet as his true energy started to boil. The blood was washed away by the rain, and waves of heat surged out. Although Nangong Wuk was in a sorry state, he clenched his fists and felt that he was filled with power. Nangong Xianying was startled. How did this brat become so terrifying? Chi. Nangong Wuk spouted hot air from his nostrils as he stared at Nangong Xianying like a bull in heat. Old dog died. After letting out a roar, Nangong Wuk shot out explosively. His speed was so fast that it was almost impossible for anyone to catch a glimpse of his body. The rain was swept up by his figure as he rushed over. Boom! This punch almost pierced through the air. Nangong Xianying's pupils contracted. He raised his palm and collided with Nangong Wuk's fist. It was a loud bang. Both of them took several steps back. Nangong Xianying's heart shuddered. How is this possible? How did he become so strong all of a sudden? Ayo, ayo, ayo. Nangong Wuk was pushed back. After he stabilized his body, he roared and charged forward once again. Nangong Xianying restrained the shock in his heart and released his true energy, causing the two chains on his back to emit rattling sounds. Boom! A terrifying energy wave surged out and smashed against Nangong Wuk's body. Nangong Wuk's true energy shook intensely as he unexpectedly withstood the energy wave. After spurting out a mouthful of blood, Nangong Wuk charged in front of Nangong Xianying. He straightened his neck and glared at Nangong Xianying with a malevolent expression, causing Nangong Xianying's heart to tremble. "You little bastard, you old dog!" Blood dripped from the corners of Nangong Wuk's mouth as he glared at Nangong Xianying. His mouth was swollen due to the spiciness. However, this wasn't a problem. Nangong Wuk felt extremely carefree after his power had increased sharply. He grabbed Nangong Xianying's shoulder with his palm and smashed his fist toward Nangong Xianying's head. Bang! Nangong Xianying's complexion changed as he raised his hand to block it. Nangong Xianying's arm and Nangong Wuk's fist collided. Nangong Xianying snorted and became even angrier. He wanted to shake Nangong Wuk off, but he discovered that the lad was grabbing his shoulder and he couldn't struggle free. Nangong Xianying snorted again as he fiercely smashed his elbow down. Nangong Wuk was extremely excited. "Who asked you to act pretentious in front of me? I will beat you until even your father can't recognize you." Bang, 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 bang. Elbow strikes and angry roars were unceasing. You little bastard, you dare to bite me? I'm biting you, old dog." Bu Fong, who was standing at a distance, was speechless as he looked at the two people who were fighting each other. Nangong Wuk was fighting crazily, and he even bit Nangong Xianying's arm, causing the latter to roar angrily. The Rampage Ramen could increase one's fighting prowess by 2 times. With Nangong Wuk's foundation, the increase in his fighting prowess was more than 2 times. If Nangong Wuk's body wasn't so weak, he would have been able to defeat Nangong Xianying. Unfortunately, Nangong Wuk's injuries were too severe. Even the Rampage Ramen couldn't change the fact that he was heavily injured. Moreover, the effect of the Rampage Ramen wouldn't last for long. Bang! Bang! The ground seemed to be trembling. Both of them were at the divine physique echelon, and their fighting prowess was outstanding. As they battled, they shattered the ground. However, the Heavenly Mist City was protected by a protective array, and the shattered ground would automatically be repaired. However, the elixir stores in the vicinity were in a miserable state. They were continuously destroyed. After a long while, Nangong Wuk crawled up from the ground. Blood was unceasingly flowing out of his body. Nangong Xianying, who was bombarded by the Rampage Ramen, fell on the ground, motionless. Nangong Wuk was gasping for breath, and his chest was like a bellows, which was unceasingly twitching. He was too tired, and after the Rampage Ramen's effect disappeared, a tide-like tiredness surged over him and engulfed him. Nangong Wuk's body felt like it was filled with lead, and he struggled to take a step. Nangong Wuk's eyes were half opened, and he grinned at Bu Fong with his swollen mouth. "You little bastard, you really deserve to die." However, Nangong Wuk's body suddenly stiffened. He slowly turned around and saw Nangong Xianying crawling up from the ground. Nangong Wuk swallowed a black elixir. That elixir had a faintly discernible pattern on it. When the elixir entered his mouth, Nangong Xianying's aura started recovering and rising, and he unexpectedly reached his previous peak state. However, compared to his previous state, he was in a much more sorry state. "Damn it!" Nangong Xianying angrily roared, and he swept his leg, which ferociously pounded on Nangong Wuk's waist. Nangong Wuk, who was already exhausted, couldn't resist it. He was sent flying, and his body crashed into an elixir store, which was completely covered in rubble. Even after a long while, Nangong Wuk still couldn't crawl out of the rubble. Nangong Xianying's hair was disheveled, and his clothes were full of tears. There were also many hideous bite marks on them, which were quite a ghastly sight. Nangong Xianying rubbed his body, and his gaze fell on Bufang. "It's you, isn't it? It's your bowl of noodles that allowed this little bastard's power to suddenly erupt, isn't it?" He spat out each and every word with a malevolent expression. Nangong Xianying's killing intent became even more intense. Bufang calmly stood at the entrance, and he expressionlessly looked at Nangong Xianying. "Yes, your guess is correct, but it's a pity that there's no reward," Bufang said. "Reward? I will give you a reward for your death," Nangong Xianying coldly said. As he spoke, a trace of excitement and greed could be seen in his eyes. A heaven and earth obsidian flame. This kid still had a heaven and earth obsidian flame in his body. Nangong Xianying originally thought that he was a member of the puppet sect, and he wanted to be lenient. But after Bufang had a heaven and earth obsidian flame, being lenient? Only an idiot would do such a thing. If he could obtain a heaven and earth obsidian flame, his status would surely rise, and his alchemy skills would also become more and more powerful, and he might even break through to become a one-cloud alchemist. The benefits of obtaining a heaven and earth obsidian flame were too great. "I will slowly drain your heaven and earth obsidian flame, just like how my big brother drained Nangong Wuck's 9 Hell King flame." Step by step, Nangong Xianying slowly walked toward Bufang. Bufang let out a long breath. He opened his eyes, and in the next moment, Xiao Bai's body appeared in front of Bufang, blocking his path. The purple radiance in Xiao Bai's eyes suddenly changed into an ash-gray color. An ice-cold, murderous aura surged within his eyes. The arrays on Xiao Bai's body all shone with a radiance. "Your puppet is really powerful, but it's still not enough to block me." Nangong Xianying sneered as he looked at Xiao Bai. Nangong Xianying's feet suddenly burst forth, and he instantly broke through the speed of sound, appearing in front of Xiao Bai. Bang! Before the array cannon on Xiao Bai's body could be fired, it was smacked away by Nangong Xianying's palm. A stream of true energy fiercely shot out and struck Xiao Bai's body, sending Xiao Bai flying. It was impossible for him to keep up with Nangong Xianying's movements. The difference in speed between the two of them was too great. Bufang's pupils shrank. Bang! 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 Xiao Bai struggled to get up and unceasingly charged toward Nangong Xianying. However, the two of them weren't on the same level. Every time, Xiao Bai would be smashed into the ground. "Did you see that? Your puppet will soon be smashed into pieces by me. What other tricks do you have?" Nangong Xianying sneered coldly. He coldly looked at Bufang. Bufang narrowed his eyes, and Xiaopi, who was on his shoulder, waved its sickle-like claws. It seemed like it wasn't satisfied with Nangong Xianying's arrogant attitude. Xiao Bai, who was lying on the ground, had his ash-gray eyes flicker once again. His eyes were flickering between purple and white, and a terrifying aura was gradually emitted from Xiao Bai's body. However, just when Xiao Bai's aura was about to erupt, squeak, Xiaopi, who was lying on Bufang's shoulder, let out a cry and turned into a golden beam of light. Its speed was so fast that it seemed like a golden beam of light was tearing through the void. It was so fast that people couldn't catch it. Nangong Xianying was stupefied, and his heart palpitated. He raised his palm and fiercely swatted at Xiaopi, who was rushing toward him. "A puppet, a prawn. Don't tell me that you only have these tricks." Nangong Xianying roared, and his aura rose steadily. The 2 chains on his back flickered to their peak. Suddenly, his pupils shrank, and they shrunk to the size of sesame seeds. He discovered that the golden beam of light, which was shooting toward him, had unexpectedly disappeared. Chapter 445. Where's that prawn? Nangong Xianying's eyes were filled with a baleful aura, but he discovered that the dazzling golden radiance in front of him was nowhere to be seen. It was as if that golden mantis shrimp had never appeared in the first place. All of a sudden, Nangong Xianying felt a chill run down his spine. He felt an enormous shadow covering him, and that shadow contained a berserk aura. What was going on? Nangong Xianing's heart shuddered, and he raised his head. He saw a figure in the sky, which was so huge that it covered the sun and the sky. Raindrops fell from the sky, and when they fell on that enormous golden figure, the water splashed everywhere. Roar! A deafening roar resounded. That tiny mantis shrimp had suddenly become so huge. Its oppressive aura caused Nangong Xianing's eyes to tremble. Bufong was also stupefied as he looked at the enormous mantis shrimp. He didn't expect that Xiaopi, who was usually lying on his shoulder quietly, could actually transform. It seemed like this little guy wasn't as simple as he seemed. The sharp sickle-like claws were extremely huge, and when it waved them, it seemed as if it wanted to cut the ground into pieces. Nangong Xianing felt an ice-cold wind blowing at him, and his body flickered as he shot into the distance. Bang! Xiao Bai was slightly startled, and the fluctuating colors in his eyes disappeared, and they returned to their original gray color. Xiao Bai slapped the ground with his palm, and his body soared into the sky. Xiaopi's body, which was like a giant golden dragon, moved, and the carapace on his body collided with each other, emitting sharp sounds. Xiao Bai's body floated in the sky. Xiaopi's body turned around, and Xiao Bai landed on Xiaopi's back. Xiaopi's compound eyes rolled around, and he waved his sickle-like claws as he let out a roar. Buzz, a hazy golden brilliance spread out from Shrimpy's body. These specks of light enveloped Whitey, causing Whitey's entire body to be covered in a layer of noble gold. Xiao Bai's grayish-white eyes flickered, and the light of the formation on his body blazed brightly. What is this? Acrobatics? After Nangong Xianing steadied himself, a strange expression appeared on his face as he looked at the puppet that was riding a giant golden shrimp. He felt very strange and speechless. Bufong's eyes brightened as he looked at Xiao Bai and Xiaopi. He didn't even know that these two could form a team. All along, Bufong had thought that Xiaopi had no other use other than swimming in the wok to improve the taste and texture of the dishes. So he had been wrong all along. Shrimpy can actually transform. It's useless. You are both too weak. Nangong Xianing didn't care about it all. He let out a long roar, and his true energy surged out of his body. His true energy transformed into an eagle that spread its wings and soared into the sky. That eagle's body was bound by two ice-cold chains. Bang! Surging energy waves burst out of Nangong Xianing's body and spread out in all directions. So, this is your final trump card. Very well, then I will completely tear it apart and let you feel what is called despair. When his voice faded, Nangong Xianing's body shot out. His speed surpassed the speed of sound, and a series of sonic booms echoed out. In an instant, Nangong Xianing appeared in front of the giant Xiaopi. Xiaopi, who was carrying Xiao Bai on its back, glared at him. Its numerous legs moved in the air, and its body shot out at an inconceivable speed. Its speed wasn't any slower than Nangong Xianing's. Nangong Xianing's pupils shrank, and he punched out. His fist's wind was ferocious, and it seemed like it turned into a roaring phantom as it pounded toward Xiaopi. That terrifying fluctuation seemed like it wanted to smash Xiaopi into pieces with a single punch. A wave of intense fluctuation burst out. A blazing radiance shot out from Xiaopi's back. Rip! It seemed like the air was torn apart. It was an energy cannon shot out by a magic array cannon. Xiao Bai, who was standing on Xiaopi's back, was engulfed by a layer of hazy golden radiance. The magic array on his body also shone with a golden radiance. The array cannon shot out was also engulfed by a layer of golden radiance. The fist's energy was directly torn apart by the array cannon. The energy of the energy cannon didn't dissipate. It emitted a deafening rumble as it flew toward Nangong Xianing. So fast. Why is this array cannon's speed so much faster than before? All the hair on Nangong Xianing's body stood on end. If Xiao Bai's array cannon could be said to be troublesome to deal with, Then the might of the array cannon at this moment terrified him. He couldn't dodge it. Nangong Xianying raised his true energy barrier, and he had no choice but to face it head-on. Rumble. Everyone in the heavenly mist city, which was shrouded in darkness, couldn't help but turn their heads to look in a certain direction, where an intense explosion had occurred. A golden radiance soared up to the sky. Then, a terrifying wave of energy surged out. Bufong was somewhat shocked, and he couldn't help but inwardly suck in a breath of cold air as he looked at the hazy white radiance in front of him. When the smoke and dust dispersed, a surging mist pervaded the surroundings. Then, the surrounding ground was exposed. The whole ground caved in, and crushed rocks flew everywhere, while the ground cracked unceasingly. Such destructive power was really frightening. How did the array cannons might suddenly increase by so much? Bufong's heart suddenly jolted, and his eyes slightly widened. Could it be that Xiaopi could not only enhance the taste of the dishes, but also increase its combat power? That golden light enveloping him. Perhaps it could really increase his battle prowess? Thinking of this, Bufong looked at Xiaopi with some surprise. Where did this little guy come from? What kind of freak was inside that crystal source? The mist dispersed. It revealed a figure that was standing tall. At this moment, Nangong Xianying was in an extremely sorry state. He never expected that the might of the array cannon would be so much stronger than the previous ones. The clothes on his body were all torn to shreds. His skin and flesh were even slightly charred. It was simply terrifying. The moment the energy barrier came into contact with the array cannon, it immediately shattered. It simply couldn't resist for long. It was simply terrifying. Nangong Xianying raised his head, and a trickle of blood slowly flowed down from his nose. Whitey stood on Shrimpy's back, its entire body shimmering with a golden radiance. The pair of metal wings on its back suddenly spread open. A clanging sound was heard. Another array cannon condensed in the golden array formation in front of his belly. Rip! Another energy cannon shot toward him at an extremely fast speed. Its speed frightened Nangong Xianying. Dodge? No, it was too late. Nangong Xianying once again condensed his true energy barrier and wanted to resist the cannon's attack. A loud explosion resounded. A dazzling radiance and intense fluctuations resounded. Nangong Xianying's body was sent flying by the explosion. Bang! 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 At this moment, Xiao Bai had completely turned into a human-shaped cannon. The array in front of his belly shot out many array cannons. Each cannon seemed as if it wanted to tear the air apart. A deafening explosion resounded. Nangong Xianying didn't want to live anymore. Shameless, he couldn't resist the array cannon. Each energy cannon was equivalent to the attack of a divine physique echelon expert who had broken through 2 of the Supreme Being's shackles. How did he block it? He wanted to block it and even try to block it, but he couldn't. After more than 10 array cannons shot out, the array in front of Xiao Bai's belly emitted thick smoke. It seemed as if the array couldn't withstand it anymore and dispersed. The golden energy released by Xiaopi's body dimmed and disappeared. Xiaopi's body, which was like a giant golden dragon, shrunk and became as small as before. It lay on Xiao Bai's round head. It seemed as if a layer of the ground had been shaved off. The elixir stores in the surroundings were all smashed. Poochie! Nangong Xianying slowly crawled up from the ground and spouted a mouthful of blood. His aura was extremely weak. He still hadn't died. As expected of an expert who had broken through 2 of the Supreme Being's shackles. Nangong Xianying raised his head. His whole body was bathed in blood, and he was coughing up blood. His aura was extremely weak and miserable. Ha ha! You don't have any more moves, do you? Why don't you continue to attack? Continue attacking. Nangong Xianying staggered and stabilized his body. He widened his eyes and laughed heartily. Bufong, who was leaning against the door, calmly looked at Nangong Xianying. In the sky, the golden radiance enveloping Xiao Bai's body had dimmed. However, it was still covered by a layer of membrane. It was obvious that after Xiaopi's body shrunk, Its amplification ability had decreased. However, it was enough. The pair of metal wings on Xiao Bai's back shook. His body gave off a sonic boom as he appeared in front of Nangong Xianying. Nangong Xianying's pupil shrank, and he raised his hand to block it. The two of them immediately started fighting with their fists. Bang! 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 As the attacks erupted, Nangong Xianying was forced to retreat step by step. He was injured. His injuries were severe, and he couldn't block it anymore. However, he still had to block it even if he couldn't. He didn't want to die. He angrily roared and punched out, colliding with Xiao Bai's fist. Shockwaves surged out. Xiao Bai's eyes flickered. He deflected the punch and quickly grabbed Nangong Xianying's neck. He ruthlessly pressed Nangong Xianying against the ground. Crushed stones flew everywhere as he punched Nangong Xianying, causing the ground to tremble. Bang! With a loud bang, the entire ground was smashed and sunk in. The Heavenly Mist City's array couldn't be repaired in time. Nangong Xianying was lying on the ground like a dead dog, unable to move. Xiao Bai stood up and folded his wings. His imposing manner was like a rainbow. "You can't kill me. You can't kill me." Cough, cough. However, Nangong Xianying quickly crawled up from the ground once again. He coughed out blood and swallowed another green elixir. His aura unexpectedly recovered once again. He laughed crazily and looked at Xiao Bai, Xiaopi, and Bufang. "Ha ha! With the 2-mark spirit elixir, you won't be able to kill me." However, he still felt a slight pain in his heart. Shockwaves surged out as Nangong Xianying's aura soared. It became more and more terrifying. Xiao Bai's eyes flickered and the aura on his body gradually condensed. Xiaopi, who was lying on Xiao Bai's head, stood up and looked at Nangong Xianying. In the next moment, a squeaking sound echoed. A golden light flashed and instantly penetrated Nangong Xianying's body. Nangong Xianying's laughter came to an abrupt stop. In the air, Xiaopi waved his sickle-like claws and moved his numerous legs. Then, they turned into numerous golden lights and rapidly pierced through Nangong Xianying's body. They pierced through him like a sieve. Chapter 446. When the golden radiance dissipated, a bloody mist appeared. The bloody mist was so dense that it didn't dissipate. Xiaopi's body swayed as he crawled in the air. Finally, he returned to Xiao Bai's head and lay down on it. Nangong Xianying's eyes widened and were filled with shock and disbelief. He stiffly lowered his head and looked at the numerous bloody holes on his body. He was so depressed that he spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura instantly became dispirited and he lost all of his vitality. Why? Why did this happen? He actually died in the hands of a shrimp. His body was pierced through before the elixir's effects could take effect. His blood flowed chaotically, and even his heart was pierced through. It was impossible for him to survive. He wouldn't be able to survive. Puff! After continuously coughing out blood, Nangong Xianying's body started trembling intensely, as if he was shaking a leaf. Fresh blood flowed out from the bloody holes on his body. With a plop, he knelt on the ground and finally fell to the ground. His aura quickly disappeared. The rain, which had been raining for an entire night, finally stopped. The dark clouds seemed to have been dispersed by a formless wind, and the raindrops disappeared. Xiao Bai raised his hand and scratched his round head. However, he bumped into Xiaopi. He grabbed the little guy and placed him on his shoulder. Xiao Bai's eyes turned purple as he turned around and walked toward the store. Xiaopi crawled on top of Xiao Bai's head and found a comfortable place to sleep. It seemed like the matter had come to an end. The people sent by the Nangong family to capture Nangong Wuk were almost completely annihilated. No one had expected such a thing to happen. Since Nangong Wuk was already heavily injured, the Nangong family's people didn't think that anything unexpected would happen. Moreover, Nangong Xianying, a divine physique echelon expert who had broken through 2 of the Supreme Being's shackles, would definitely succeed. However, something unexpected happened that surprised everyone. A restaurant, which the Nangong family didn't even put in their eyes, unexpectedly annihilated all of their people. One could imagine how big of an uproar it would cause if this matter were spread back to the Nangong clan. Bufang shot a glance at Nangong Xianying's corpse. The latter's life aura had already completely disappeared, and it was obvious that he wouldn't be able to survive. Bufang walked out of the store and slowly walked toward the ruins in the distance. He kicked away a piece of rubble, revealing a figure beneath it. Nangong Wuk's upper body was bare, and his body was covered with scars. His aura was extremely weak. His lips were swollen as he lay in the ruins, sleeping soundly. He was so tired that he didn't even want to move a finger. Bufang looked at the snoring Nangong Wuk, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. He thought that this guy was kicked to death by Nangong Xianying. In the end, this guy was only sleeping, and he was sleeping so soundly. His life was really tough. After picking Nangong Wuk up from the ground, Bufang dragged him toward the store. Pong, there was a soft sound. The bronze gate was tightly shut. The outside of the store became extremely quiet. The black clouds in the sky had already dispersed, and the rain had also gradually stopped. A gentle breeze was blowing, bringing with it the chill of the night. Nangong Xianying's corpse was lying on the ground, and it was completely devoid of life. It seemed extremely miserable. The surrounding ground, which had been destroyed by the heavenly mist city's array, started to slowly recover, and the ground was gradually mended. However, Nangong Xianying's corpse was lying there alone, and no one came out to collect it. Creak! The sound of feet stepping on crushed stones resounded, and a figure slowly appeared in the darkness. This figure was wrapped in a black robe, and his facial features couldn't be clearly seen. However, it was clear that this figure was carrying a huge bronze chest on his back. A scarlet radiance flickered under this black robe, and it was extremely horrifying. That puppet is somewhat mystical. It isn't my puppet sex puppet, but it is still so powerful. I'm quite curious. A hoarse voice resounded, and it lingered in the surroundings. That figure chuckled faintly. His laughter was like sand, and it resounded in the surroundings, causing people's hair to stand on end. However, it isn't too bad. It unexpectedly left behind a divine physique echelon's corpse. The Nangong family's second elder, he. If the Nangong family's people saw this puppet in the secret realm, what would they do? That figure stood next to Nangong Xianying's corpse. He suddenly moved his shoulder, and the bronze chest fell on the ground with a bang, which caused the ground to tremble intensely. Creak! It was as if the bronze lid of the chest had been opened, and a distant sound resounded. An eerie aura spread out from the bronze chest. A pair of hands suddenly stretched out, grabbed Nangong Xianying's feet, and pulled him into the bronze chest. After Nangong Xianying's corpse was pulled into the chest, a distorted roar echoed out. It seemed as if a distorted face wanted to rush out of the chest. However, that puppet sex expert laughed in a hoarse voice, and he extended his finger and lightly flicked Nangong Xianying's head. A loud bang resounded. Nangong Xianying's corpse was pulled into the chest, and the lid was closed with a loud bang. Creak! Creak! The crisp sound of bones being bitten resounded from the chest. The figure turned his body around, and his scarlet eyes took a deep look at the tightly shut store. Then, he carried the bronze chest on his back and slowly walked toward a distant place. His figure gradually disappeared into the darkness of the night. A gust of wind blew over, and it swept up the crushed stones on the ground, causing them to rustle. Heavenly Mist City, Pill Tower. Yang Meiji's tall and sturdy body was carefully kneeling on a yellow praying mat, and she didn't even dare to breathe loudly. In front of her was an old man, who had a white beard, hair, and eyebrows. That old man's eyes were closed, and his breath was calm and steady. Every time he breathed, his beard would flutter lightly. Teacher, how long do I have to stay in the Pill Tower? Yang Meiji moved her body bashfully, and she asked awkwardly. In the next moment, the old man slowly opened his eyes, and he looked at Yang Meiji. Currently, Heavenly Mist City is undergoing a drastic change, and the secret realm is about to open. This time, the secret realm will be extraordinary and I will personally bring you in. This time, both of us must grasp this opportunity. So, when the secret realm opens, we can leave. The secret realm opens? Yang Meiji's complexion changed. Didn't it mean that there was still 1 or 2 days left? Are you bored? Then go and refine more one-mark spirit pills. Alchemy is a matter that requires more practice and more pondering. Your cultivation hasn't reached the divine physique echelon, and you rely on your superior mental energy, so you need more practice and pondering. Yang Meiji immediately drooped her head, and she looked like a frosted eggplant. She softly replied, "Oh." She didn't understand. What could be in the secret realm that her teacher would value so much? Nangong family. Ouyang Xuanhe was excitedly chatting with 2 experts from the ancient Shura city. He didn't expect that the experts from the ancient Shura city would come to the heavenly mist city. The ancient Shura city and the Pill Palace were both first-rate factions in the hidden dragon continent. However, the ancient Shura city was the most mysterious faction among the first-rate factions. This was because no one knew the exact location of the ancient Shura city. They only knew that the ancient Shura city existed, and it was even more mysterious than the hidden dragon royal court. Thus, many factions instinctively revered the ancient Shura city. Moreover, the experts who came from the ancient Shura city were all extremely powerful, and they naturally wouldn't offend them. The experts from the ancient Shura city were all clad in blood-red robes, and they had solemn expressions as they chatted with Nangong Xuanhe. All of a sudden, a person rushed into the Nangong family's residence in a fluster, and he looked at Nangong Xuanhe, who was sitting in the main seat with a frightened expression on his face. Great elder. Bad news. This was an expert of the divine physique echelon, who had broken through one of the Supreme Being's shackles. At this moment, his heart was in a mess. Why are you so flustered? Where is your sense of propriety? Nangong Xuanhe's complexion immediately changed, and he berated him. In front of the experts from the ancient Shura city, he still wanted to save some face, and he couldn't allow them to laugh at him. However, in the next moment, the words spoken by the guard caused Nangong Xuanhe's complexion to drastically change. Great elder. The people that the second elder brought to capture Nangong Wuk are all dead, and the second elder is also missing. I'm afraid that he met with a mishap. The divine physique echelon expert trembled as he said what he wanted to say. What? A loud bang resounded. The chair that Nangong Xuanhe was sitting on suddenly broke into pieces, and he widened his eyes as he stood up, and his aura surged. What did you say? All the people who were chasing after Nangong Wuk are dead? Chapter 447. Black Eagle is dead? How could he be dead? How could that little bastard Nangong Wuk kill a Black Eagle? Nangong Xuanhe didn't conceal his aura at all. As he released his aura, a terrifying fluctuation filled the entire hall, giving rise to a whistling gale. The ancient Shura city's expert calmly looked at Nangong Xuanhe with a faint smile on his face. His smile was filled with ridicule. However, Nangong Xuanhe didn't have the mood to care about the ancient Shura city's expert. His heart was in a mess. Black Eagle was dead? That was his little brother. How could he be dead? The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. In the end, he almost roared. Tell me, who did it? Nangong Xuanhe roared. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at the expert who broke through one of the Supreme Being's shackles. The guard trembled in fear. After all, he had witnessed how terrifying Nangong Xuanhe was. After all, the entire Nangong family was taken away by Nangong Xuanhe. This was enough to show how terrifying he was. He really didn't want to face the furious Nangong Xuanhe. However, it was a small restaurant. The Black Eagle's second elder disappeared in that restaurant. Other than the second elder's corpse, the others' corpses were all there. The guard said, while trembling, "A small restaurant?" Nangong Xuanhe suppressed the anger in his heart and glared at the guard. Go to a small restaurant? Heavenly Mist City still had a restaurant? Impossible. Even if there was a restaurant, it should be a half-dead one. In Heavenly Mist City, There was the multi-taste fasting pill invented by the Nangong family. Why would a restaurant exist? Moreover, a restaurant dared to protect a criminal that the Nangong family wanted to kill. This was simply unforgivable. Flames of anger surged out from Nangong Xuanha's body. An oppressive aura filled the air, and the pressure of heaven and earth spread out. Nangong Xuanha was an expert who broke through two of the Supreme Being's shackles. He was on the verge of breaking through the third shackle. His cultivation was powerful, and his aura was terrifying. When he released his aura, many people trembled in fear. However, the experts of the ancient Shura city were still fine because their cultivations weren't weak. However, they still frowned slightly. Grand Elder Dark Crane, since you have matters to attend to, we will take our leave first. However, please remember what you have promised. See you tomorrow. Scarlet Robe said as he stood up and left the hall with his companions. When Misha walked out of the hall, the corners of his mouth curled upwards. He shot a glance at Nangong Xuanha, who had suddenly started roaring in the hall. He sneered and continued walking forward. The next day, Cloud Mist Restaurant. The sky quickly brightened, and rays of sunlight seeped through the cracks in the sky and illuminated Nangong Wuk's blood-stained face, causing the muscles on his face to involuntarily twitch. As he slowly opened his eyes, everything in front of him gradually became clear from the blurry state. Where am I? Am I not dead? Nangong Wuk couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as he felt an intense pain in his waist. Nangong Xuanha, that old dog, was actually so ruthless. Kicking a man's waist so ruthlessly it was fatal. Where's this place? Nangong Wuk finally got a clear look at his surroundings, and he couldn't help but squint his eyes in confusion. It was clean and tidy, and it even emitted the fragrance of a woman's boudoir. Nangong Wuk immediately sat up from his bed. The injuries on his body were almost healed, and he took out an elixir from his spatial spirit tool. After eating the elixir, he silently revolved his true energy to digest the elixir. At the same time, he earnestly observed his surroundings. Nangong Wuk's complexion was extremely solemn and grave. Sure enough, this place was a woman's boudoir. Moreover, there were places in the boudoir that were covered with pink curtains, and the fragrance emitted from them was mesmerizing. Nangong Wuk could guess that the owner of this boudoir was a beautiful woman. But whose boudoir was this? Nangong Wuk still remembered that when he fainted, he was outside of Owner Boo's restaurant. Could it be that this was Owner Boo's room? Hiss! Nangong Wuk sucked in a breath of cold air, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Owner Boo actually had such a young girl's heart? One really couldn't judge a book by its cover. Bu Fong's solemn expression and Bu Fong's solemn face appeared in his mind, and he imagined Bu Fong sitting on a small bed covered with pink curtains. That kind of charming and gentle, that kind of strange atmosphere caused Nangong Wuk to shiver. Just when Nangong Wuk was letting his imagination run wild, the door to the room was suddenly pushed open, and a person appeared at the door. A silhouette appeared at the entrance. It was Bu Fong, who Nangong Wuk had a strange feeling about. "You're awake?" Bu Fong calmly asked. Nangong Wuk widened his eyes, and he nodded his head repeatedly as he took a step back. Bu Fong was somewhat puzzled. Nangong Wuk's condition didn't seem right. Could it be that Nangong Xianying's kick on his waist yesterday had damaged his brain? Something still didn't seem right. Forget it. Since you're awake, you should quickly come down. I have something to discuss with you. Bu Fong shot a glance at Nangong Wuk and said. After he spoke, he turned around and left the room. Nangong Wuk, who was leaning against a corner of the wall, let out a deep breath when he saw Bu Fong leave. It was really too depressing. I didn't expect you to be like this, Owner Bu. Nangong Wuk found a water source in the room, and after he washed his body, he walked out of the room with his upper body bare. He didn't prepare any clothes in his spatial spirit tool, so he felt somewhat embarrassed. However, when he just walked out of the room, Bu Fong threw a piece of clothing at him. That piece of clothing was quite loose, and when it was put on his body, it exposed the white skin on his chest. Nangong Wuk pursed his lips and cautiously looked at Bu Fong. He was extremely vigilant. Bu Fang's gaze was somewhat strange, and it seemed like he found Nangong Wuk's gaze somewhat strange. "What's wrong?" Bu Fang calmly asked. "No, nothing." Nangong Wuk straightened his neck and replied with his eyes wide open. "I'm fine." "Come down then," Bu Fang said. Bu Fang didn't pay any more attention to him, and he walked toward the kitchen. After a short while, his figure disappeared. Nangong Wuk took a deep breath, and he walked down the stairs while wearing his robe. When he reached the bottom of the stairs, a fragrance wafted out. That fragrance was extremely rich, and it caused Nangong Wuk's heart to shiver. This smell, was it the Buddha jumps over the wall soup? Sure enough, when he walked into the store, a jar of Buddha jumps over the wall soup was placed there. "Eat it." The Buddha jumps over the wall soup should be able to quickly heal your injuries. However, you still need to pay with crystals, Bu Fang said. Nangong Wuk nodded his head, and he sat on his seat and started to gorge himself on the food. The rich fragrance filled the air, and he ate until his mouth was covered with grease. Bu Fang pulled out a chair and sat beside Nangong Wuk. He stared at Nangong Wuk. This gaze, Nangong Wuk's body stiffened, and he turned his head with great difficulty to look at Bu Fang. He took a deep breath, and his gaze became vigilant. "Owner Bu, why are you staring at me?" Nangong Wuk swallowed a chicken wing in his mouth, and he asked, "Does your Nangong family have a quota to enter the secret realm?" Bu Fang asked earnestly. Nangong Wuk was taken aback. He didn't expect that Bu Fang would ask such a question, and it was completely different from what he had expected. "Of course we do. The Nangong family is a great family in Heavenly Mist City, and it controls the secret realm's teleportation array, so we naturally have a quota. However, we only have 2 extra quotas, and they are managed by the family head," Nangong Wuk said with a sigh. When he mentioned the Nangong family, his heart became slightly sorrowful. "I need a quota to enter the secret realm," Bu Fang said earnestly. Puff! Nangong Wuk's heart was still sorrowful, but when he heard Bu Fang's sudden words, he almost spat out the chicken in his mouth. "Owner Bu, don't make a fuss. Your cultivation is too weak," Nangong Wuk said helplessly. Those who were qualified to enter the secret realm had to be at least at the 10th grade divine level, and they were experts who had broken through one of the Supreme Being's shackles. Bu Fang was just an 8th grade war god. He didn't have the qualifications to enter, and what could he do with his cultivation? "Aren't you the successor of the Nangong family? You have 2 quotas now. Can you bring me in?" Bu Fang asked. Nangong Wuk drank a mouthful of the soup and took a deep breath. He shook his head resolutely. "No, I can't let you throw your life away. You saved me, and that old dog Nangong Xuanhe must have a grudge against you. Once you enter the secret realm with me, that old dog won't let you off. Moreover, your cultivation is too weak." Bu Fang furrowed his brows, and Nangong Wuk's resolute attitude surprised him. Of course, if the system didn't issue a temporary mission for him, Bu Fang wouldn't have wanted to enter the secret realm. With his lazy personality, he might as well pull up a chair and sit in front of the shop to enjoy the sun when he entered the mystic realm. Temporary mission. Host, please enter the Cloud Sea secret realm and pick the Heaven Grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup's ingredient, the 10th grade spirit herb Dragon Bone Transformation Grass. Mission reward, 20% energy conversion reward. This was the mission issued by the system after Bu Fang threw Nangong Wuk into Yang Meiji's room. "There's a requirement to enter the secret realm?" Bu Fang furrowed his brows. "No, but I'm afraid that something might happen to you," Nangong Wuk said helplessly after he calmed down. He would definitely go to the secret realm, but he wouldn't bring Owner Bu with him. Once his injuries were more or less healed, he would fight for the quota that belonged to him. He was the successor of the Nangong family, and since the family head had passed away, the remaining quota belonged to him. This was something that belonged to him. "Isn't it fine if I'm strong enough?" Bu Fang expressionlessly looked at Nangong Wuk, and his gaze made the latter's hair stand on end. After Nangong Wuk nodded his head, the corners of Bu Fang's mouth curled up. "Then, pay me the crystals for this Buddha jumps over the wall soup," Bu Fang said as he stood up. Nangong Wuk was taken aback. Owner Bu was going to turn his back on him. He still hadn't finished eating yet. However, he didn't care about it. He didn't have many other things, but he had brought a lot of crystals to eat Bu Fong's dishes. He took out 10,000 crystals. After Bu Fong received the 10,000 crystals, the system's notification resounded in his mind. Congratulations to the host for reaching the required turnover. Starting to upgrade. Chapter 448. Host, Bu Fong True Energy Cultivation Level. 9th Grade Cooking Talent. 4-star skills. Level 2 Meteor Cutting Technique. 100 out of 100. Level 2 Big Dipper Carving Technique. 100 out of 100. Gourmet Array. 1 out of 6. Tools. Golden Dragon Bone Kitchen Knife. God of Cooking Set. Black Turtle Constellation Wok. God of Cooking Set. God of Cooking Overall Evaluation. Intermediate Chef. Your cooking talent has reached a higher level, and your cooking skills have become more proficient. A wider world of cooking has opened up for you, and you can start cooking functional ingredients. System level, 9 stars, conversion ratio is at 100%, system reward. Overlord 13 Blades Knife Technique, functional dish. Vigorous beef meatball. When Bu Fong heard the system's notification that he had leveled up, he subconsciously opened the system's interface and started to look for information about himself. He could feel a faint wisp of true energy rushing into his body, and the instant it entered his body, it turned into dense true energy and entered his dantian. This time, the amount of energy that was converted into true energy was enormous, and this terrifying energy made Bu Fong slightly raise his brows. The true energy quickly rushed into the energy whirlpool in his dantian, and it caused the whirlpool to revolve faster and faster. Moreover, there seemed to be specks of light emitting from it. 9th Grade Supreme Being, Bu Fong sighed inwardly. After Nangong Wuk bought the last Buddha Jumps Over the Wall soup, his turnover had finally reached the system's requirements, and he could upgrade it. The system had also upgraded to 9 stars, and his true energy cultivation level had also reached the 9th Grade Supreme Being level. The Supreme Being, who used to be high and mighty in his eyes, had now also reached the Supreme Being level. Bu Fong's heart, which was as calm as an ancient well, was slightly excited. Moreover, it seemed like he had also obtained many new skills from this upgrade. Overlord 13 Blades. Just the name alone made it seem extremely domineering. This should be the knife technique, and Bu Fong's heart was filled with anticipation. His knife technique, which had stagnated for a long time, could finally be improved. He had already practiced the meteor knife technique to its limit, and it would be difficult for him to improve it. Now, the Overlord 13 Blades had appeared, and it gave Bu Fong a strange sense of novelty. Overlord 13 Blades, Advanced Blade Technique, can be used in battle. There are a total of 13 blades, and their power can be stacked. When the 13 blades are stacked, the power will be earth-shattering. Also, if you want to practice this blade, you must first practice your aura. The system's solemn and serious voice reached Bu Fong's ears. Bu Fong narrowed his eyes. Overlord 13 Blades. It could be said that this was not just a simple knife technique. Following the advancement of Bu Fong's cultivation, the ingredients he would encounter in the future would be extremely powerful. The pressure emitted by some Overlord-level spirit beasts was not something that could be completely suppressed by the Golden Dragon Bone kitchen knife. At this moment, the effect of the Overlord 13 Blades appeared. With the Dragon Bone kitchen knife and the Overlord 13 Blades, Bu Fong would be able to handle these ingredients with ease. Squinting his eyes, Bu Fong began to ponder over the image of the Overlord 13 Blades that the system had sent to his mind. Nangong Wuk held a chicken bone in his mouth. His clothes were unbuttoned, revealing his fair chest. He looked at Bu Fong in a daze. That was because he suddenly realized that Bu Fong's aura had undergone a huge change. In just an instant, Nangong Wuk realized that he could no longer recognize Bu Fong. Moreover, from the aura emitted by Bu Fong, it seemed like Owner Bu's cultivation was no longer at the 8th grade War God level. 9th grade Supreme Being? Becoming a Supreme Being in an instant? Was it really that easy to break through to the 9th grade Supreme Being level? Was this a joke? Nangong Wuk felt that his brain was unable to process the situation. A moment ago, He was still saying that Bufong's cultivation was insufficient. In the blink of an eye, Bufong gave him a breakthrough. Was Bufong going to break through the Supreme Being's shackles and become a 10th grade divine echelon expert? Fortunately, Bufong's aura did not undergo such a terrifying change. However, it was enough to make Nangong Wuk's heart beat wildly. If that's the case, is my strength sufficient? Bufong slowly opened his eyes and looked at Nangong Wuk with a faint smile on his face as he spoke. Nangong Wuk probably did not expect that Bufong would break through to the 9th grade Supreme Being level in an instant. Nangong Wuk spat out the chicken bone in his mouth and looked at Bufong as if he was looking at a monster. He clicked his tongue in wonder. He had already begun to suspect whether Owner Bu had intentionally suppressed his cultivation in order to humiliate him. However, thinking about it, Owner Bu would not be so bored. 9th grade Supreme Being, how is that enough? If you want to enter the secret realm, your cultivation must be at least at the level of breaking through one of the Supreme Being's shackles. Old Bu, even if you become a 9th grade Supreme Being, it is still insufficient. If you encounter a 10th grade divine echelon expert, you will definitely die, Nangong Wuk said earnestly. You really talk a lot of nonsense. You just need to take me in. As for my life and death, it will be up to fate, Bufong said with a frown. I can't. Old Bu, I really can't harm you. Nangong Wuk still wanted to persuade Bufong earnestly. However, shortly after, he felt a chill at the tip of his nose. Bufong patted the golden shrimpy on his shoulder, and the latter actually dashed forward. Its sickle-like claws emitted an ice-cold aura as it aimed at Bufong. Xiaopi's compound eyes rolled around, and it waved its sickle-like claws as if it was threatening Bufong. Shut up, Nangong Wuk waved his hand and smiled. Bufong didn't smile, and neither did Xiaopi. Didn't you want to know how Nangong Xianying died? He was killed by this little guy, Bufong said calmly. This little guy. Old Bu also learned how to joke. This brother could eat 10 of this little guy with one hand. Nangong Wuk curled up the corners of his mouth and stared at Xiaopi as he laughed weirdly. Shrimpy seemed to have sensed the mockery on Nangong Wuk's face, and it immediately got scared. It waved its sickle-like claws, and a tearing sound was emitted. The air was directly torn apart, and a sonic boom resounded. It streaked across the tip of Nangong Wuk's nose as fast as lightning, cutting off a strand of his hair, causing it to flutter in the air. Nangong Wuk's pupils shrank as he felt a chill run down his spine. This little guy's speed was so fast that he almost failed to catch it. I am serious. I will help you recover from your injuries, and you will take me to the secret realm, Bufong said earnestly. When Nangong Wuk sensed that Bufong wasn't joking, he frowned and smiled bitterly. To be honest, I also want to take you to the secret realm, but you should know that my position in the Nangong family is no longer the same as before. I don't have the confidence to take you there, Nangong Wuk said. He really didn't have the confidence, but he still wanted to give it a try. This was something that belonged to him, and he wanted to take it back. I believe that you can do it. You can do it. Bufong expressionlessly raised his hand, clenched his fist, and pressed it down. Nangong Wuk was speechless. Then, Bufong seemed to have tacitly agreed that Nangong Wuk would take him there. He turned around and opened his store, starting his daily business. Heavenly Mist City, the center of the city. Presently, the vast Sky Mist Square was a boiling cauldron of voices, and it was extremely bustling with people. All the seats in the plaza were occupied, and every seat was occupied. Their faces were filled with excitement as they looked at the arena in the center of the plaza, which was surrounded by a huge array. There were flickering figures on the arena, and terrifying waves of true energy were unceasingly surging around. Various factions were fighting over the quotas to enter the secret realm. It seemed like it was already in full swing. The Lin family, Zhang family, and Nangong family were the top families in the Heavenly Mist City. Even the Heavenly Mist City Lord didn't dare to offend these three families. After all, these three families were deeply rooted in the Heavenly Mist City. Nangong Xuana's face was gloomy as he sat on the high seat. Nangong Wuk was forced to leave by him, and the Nangong family's patriarch was killed. There were two reasons for his gloomy expression. One was because of Nangong Xianying's death, and the other was because the Nangong family's disciples didn't even win a single battle. This was really too shameful. Fortunately, the Nangong family still had 2 quotas. Otherwise, these disciples wouldn't even be able to get a single quota. Sirs from the ancient Shura city, the rest will depend on you too. We must get the remaining 5 quotas. Nangong Xuanhe took a deep breath and turned his head to look at the 2 blood-robed experts sitting in the distance. No problem. Just remember to give us the 2 quotas that only your Nangong family has. As for the remaining 5 quotas, we will definitely help you get them. The bewitching Misha, who was wrapped in a blood-red robe, said with a smile. Her fiery red lips curled upwards as if she had just drunk a mouthful of fresh blood. Nangong Xuanhe heaved a sigh of relief when he got Misha's confirmation. If the 2 of them didn't help, it would be impossible for the Nangong family to get the remaining 5 quotas. If that happened, the Nangong family would only have 2 quotas. It would be extremely awkward. With the help of the ancient Shura city's experts, the Nangong family would have a total of 7 quotas. This deal wasn't a loss. Once they entered the Cloud Sea secret realm, they would be able to use the secret information they obtained to help the Nangong family rise quickly. This time's secret realm was different from the previous ones. In the distance, the people from the Pill Tower arrived. Yang Meiji's majestic body followed behind a stooped old man. Everyone looked at the stooped old man with respect. This person was the Heavenly Mist City's Pill Tower's elder, a 3 Clouds alchemist, Grandmaster Xianbei. He had an outstanding status in the Heavenly Mist City. This time, he also chose to enter the Cloud Sea secret realm. In the past, he didn't choose to enter the secret realm. However, no one objected to him entering the secret realm. After all, he was a person of virtue and prestige, and it was only right for him to have some privileges. Of course, even if there were people who objected, there weren't many of them. A gust of wind blew past them. The battles on the stage became more and more exciting. This was because more and more experts were making their moves. At the entrance, 2 figures slowly entered the arena. Nangong Wuk was speechless as he looked at Bufong, who was beside him. He felt a headache coming on. This old Bu really followed them here. Old Bu, later on, you will follow behind me. Don't act recklessly. Nangong Wuk instructed him earnestly. Okay. Bufong nodded. After seeing Bufong nod, Nangong Wuk took a deep breath and pushed open the bronze gate. Only then did Nangong Wuk take a deep breath and push open the bronze gate at the entrance. Nangong Wuk's gaze became extremely ice-cold. Nangong Wuk's gaze became extremely cold. It was time to settle some scores. Chapter 449. Is this an expert from the ancient Shura city? Xiao Chongyun, who was seated in the Lin family's camp, narrowed his eyes as he watched the 2 blood-robed experts slowly walk onto the arena. They wore blood-red robes and emitted a baleful aura. These were the characteristics of the ancient Shura city's experts. Almost everyone knew them. The puppet sex expert was a sinister-looking man who was wrapped in a black cloak. His facial expression couldn't be seen clearly, but his scarlet eyes were emitting an eerie radiance as he stared at the 2 people from the ancient Shura city, who were standing in the center of the arena. The corners of Misha's mouth curled up in an exaggerated manner. His hair fluttered in the wind, causing their blood-red robes to flutter. Who wants to fight with us? Mas said. His voice was a little hoarse, and it reverberated throughout the entire Sky Mist Square. Damn it! Why would the Nangong family invite people from the ancient Shura city? This doesn't make sense. The faces of the people from the Lin and Zhang families turned ashen. They had thought that they would definitely be able to win, but who would have thought that an expert from the ancient Shura city would appear out of nowhere? It seemed that the Lin family and the Zhang family were not fated to get the 5 spots. However, it was still a good thing for them, as they had already obtained a lot of quotas. Even though they weren't able to obtain those 5 quotas, it wasn't a big deal. It was just that they didn't have many quotas left after dividing the quotas with the experts of the Wind and Thunder Pavilion and the Puppet Sect. The Nangong family still had 2 quotas that originally belonged to them. This way, the Nangong family had 7 quotas. Damn it! This time, the Nangong family had taken the lead. The experts of the Lin family and the Zhang family smashed their fists on the table unwillingly. The 2 experts from the ancient Shura city walked down the stage and returned to the Nangong family's position. As the battles continued, the allocation of the remaining quotas was quickly completed. After all the quotas were allocated, the heavenly Mist City Lord walked to the center of the arena and began to announce the final quotas. The Cloud Sea Secret Realm could be said to be the most important thing in Heavenly Mist City. These quotas had also become very important. When the Heavenly Mist City Lord announced who the slots belonged to, the entire plaza burst into an uproar. Creak! A heavy and ancient voice rang out. 2 clear footsteps slowly resounded through the entire Heavenly Mist Square. The sound of his footsteps was not loud, but as his footsteps resounded, it caused the clamor in the square to die down. Gazes after gazes landed on that figure. Nangong Wuk! Hiss! Wasn't Nangong Wuk already dead? The successor of the Nangong family. Why is he here? After the initial silence, everyone in the square burst into an uproar. The clamor continued. The Nangong family announced to the outside world that Nangong Wuk was seriously injured and on the verge of death. It was precisely because of this that the Nangong family's 2 fixed quotas were given to Nangong Xuanhe. However, Nangong Xuanhe wasn't the true successor. Once the true successor appeared, those 2 quotas would belong to Nangong Wuk. Bufang and Nangong Wuk weren't intimidated by the clamor around them. The former was calmness. Nangong Xuanhe's gaze was fixed on Nangong Xuanhe, and killing intent filled the air. Old dog, you didn't expect that I would appear here, did you? I'm here to collect my debt, Nangong Wuk said coldly. His voice didn't drown out the clamor, but it was clearly transmitted to Nangong Xuanhe's ears. Everyone looked at him with an odd gaze. It was really very strange and weird. Nangong Xuanhe's expression changed. He stood up from his seat and suppressed his aura as he coldly said, "The Nangong family's quotas have already been allocated. What's left is our family's business. Let's go back and talk about it. Don't disgrace yourself." The quotas have already been allocated? Everyone sneered inwardly. They admired Nangong Xuanhe's shamelessness. His skin was really thick. Bufang calmly swept his gaze over the crowd. He didn't show any emotion. Nangong Wuk raised his finger and pointed at Nangong Xuanhe. He curled up the corners of his mouth and said disdainfully, "Who do you think you are? What qualifications do you have to allocate those 2 fixed quotas? What qualifications do you have? You are just an old dog who betrayed the Nangong family. Family matters? Who the hell wants to talk about family matters with you? You little bastard." Nangong Xuanhe was so angry that his beard trembled. He glared at Nangong Wuk. He stretched out a finger, which was trembling. "Don't point at me. I didn't come here to reason with you today. I also didn't come here to discuss family matters with you. I came here to ask for the quotas." Nangong Wuk said, as the successor of the Nangong family, he should have the right to allocate those 2 quotas. There was no need to doubt it. No one could doubt it, let alone an old dog like Nangong Xuanhe. "I have already allocated the quotas for you," Nangong Xuanhe said. "Who do you think you are? Scram. I want to allocate them myself. How can my Nangong family's quotas be given to just anyone?" Nangong Wuk raised his chin and said arrogantly, "You?" Nangong Xuanhe was furious. However, just as he was about to say something, the members of the Lin and Zhang families stood up and laughed. They were really happy. They didn't expect that Nangong Xuanhe wouldn't kill Nangong Wuk. Wasn't he just digging a hole for himself to jump into? He even buried himself in it. He wanted to be the master of the Nangong family without a proper reason. He was simply a retard. They naturally wouldn't let go of such an opportunity to step on him. Since Master Wuk is still alive, the Nangong family isn't something that you, Nangong Xuanhe, can decide. The Lin family's patriarch said. The Zhang family's patriarch couldn't help but agree with him. Nangong Xuanhe was so angry that his whole body trembled. However, he couldn't say anything. He originally thought that Nangong Wuk would be seriously injured after his second brother died. He thought that it would be impossible for him to appear on the stage. Everything was going according to plan. However, he didn't consider Nangong Wuk's recovery speed. Elder Xuanhe? What do you mean? It turns out that you can't decide the Nangong family. Misha squinted his eyes and looked at Nangong Xuanhe. I don't say any more. In any case, we're going to take these 2 quotas. The deal we agreed on has already been completed. If you don't give me these 2 quotas, the Nangong family will have to bear the wrath of my ancient Shura city. Misha glanced at Nangong Xuanhe and sneered. I don't care who you are. These 2 quotas belong to me, Nangong Wuk. I will give them to whoever I want. Why are you trying to interfere? Nangong Wuk said. After he finished speaking, he pulled Bufang, who was beside him. I will now announce that the Nangong family has 2 quotas. One belongs to me, and the other belongs to this person. Bufang expressionlessly looked at the crowd and nodded slightly. That's right. It's me. The crowd was dumbfounded. They all vomited blood. That's right. Who the F***ck are you? The sudden change in the situation confused the crowd. Where did this youth come from? Why was he able to take one of the quotas? Are you joking with me? Misha, who was wearing a blood-red robe, coldly looked at Nangong Wuk. Nangong Wuk was fearless. He widened his eyes and glared at Misha. Why would I joke with you? These 2 quotas belong to me. Do you have a problem with it? Why would you have a problem with it? Nangong Wuk was like a scoundrel. The crowd was somewhat speechless. Yang Meiji, who was sitting beside Master Xianbei, had her eyes lit up. She clenched her fists, and her eyes were filled with stars. He's too handsome. Young Master Wuk is too handsome. Some people recognized Bufang and started screaming. I recognize him. That youth is the owner of the multi-taste fasting pill in the Nangong family's area. That stench. I don't even dare to approach that place. Owner? Is he the owner of that restaurant? That restaurant's owner really has some shady dealings with the Nangong family. Is he really Nangong Wan's husband? Oh my God. The exclamations were incessant, rising and falling one after another. The competition for the quota this time was really too exciting. The Heavenly Mist City's city lord stood on the stage and announced the ownership of the Nangong family's 2 quotas. They naturally belonged to Nangong Wuk. Nangong Wuk was indeed the Nangong family's successor. Nangong Xuanhe was extremely unwilling, and he almost roared in anger. The ancient Shura city's expert coldly looked at him and said, out of the remaining 5 quotas, my ancient Shura city must take 2. Otherwise, I will kill you. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left, ignoring Nangong Xuanhe's expression. Nangong Xuanhe's heart ached. He hated Nangong Wuk even more now. His hatred for Bufang, who had healed Nangong Wuk's injuries, grew even deeper. If he wasn't mistaken, Nangong Wuk's second brother must have been killed by that restaurant's owner. The fact that Nangong Wuk was able to recover so quickly was definitely related to that restaurant. Damn it, what kind of joke was that? Everyone dispersed. The secret realm's teleportation would take place at night, so the people who had obtained the quotas went back to make preparations. They entered the secret realm to obtain benefits. It would be best if they could increase their strength. In the secret realm, danger and opportunity coexisted. Ayaya, Nangong Wuk, you are really awe-inspiring. I heard that your heaven and earth obsidian flame was extracted. Can you still refine elixirs? Oh, it's fine even if you can't refine it. In any case, you will be my brother-in-law in the future. If you need any elixirs, you can look for me. I won't be stingy. If there's soup for me to drink, there will definitely be scraps for you to eat. A man wearing a white coat slowly walked over. He had oily hair and a powdered face, and he sneered at Nangong Wuk. Mu Chinfeng, you are still so disgusting. With your alchemy skills, the things you refine are like **T. I'm afraid that I will become retarded if I eat them. Nangong Wuk glanced at the powdered man and replied in disdain. Moreover, a trap like you wants to marry my sister? Do you know that my real brother-in-law is here? Nangong Wuk raised his head and pulled over Bufong, who was standing beside him. The latter's face was filled with confusion. Mu Feng squinted his eyes and looked at Bufong. He chuckled while covering his mouth with his palm. While laughing, he turned around and walked away. Bufong blinked his eyes. Nangon what couldn't help but look at Bufong. Old Bu, is he looking down on you? Bufong expressionlessly looked at him. Oh, you can guess. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.